peace. Welcome to another build, another cosmic, galactic level build. Today is going to be very beautiful. This is because we have more feminine energy and more to come. Right now, I'm blessed to be joined by um, two beautiful women that I actually met through the Clubhouse app, and their vibration resonates in a way that really can't be put into words. I mean, I'm someone who, for those who don't know me, I'm someone who, I'm very in tune with the workings of, this creation and this reality. And so I consider myself to be an empath to a very extreme magnitude. And so, when I feel certain vibes, things happen for a reason, and we just let it happen. So we let it unfold, and that's going to be a lot about what we're building on today when it comes to electromagnetism. So right now, I have two beautiful feminine vessels with me right now. We have Lucifer 3 here on Discord with me. I don't know. I don't mean to, introduce you by that name. I'm not sure if that's how you want me to introduce you. I could introduce you as well by the Clubhouse. I'm not sure, but I wanted to go ahead and just introduce you as the name that I saw. But this is Katie. It's Katie. So, either way, it's not a big deal, right? I didn't mean to.
Either way is fine. Call me Lucifer. It's fine with me.
Okay.
Or Katie. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Just making sure. All right. So, because I actually, the reason I kind of hesitated right there is because I realized that I didn't ask that before. So I said it before I thought about asking it, and that's what made me hesitate. But okay, it's good to know. So it's Lucifer, aka Katie, in the building. I appreciate you for joining. Very insightful, strong spirit, an adept poet. Just having some of the dopest poems I've read in a long time. Just read a few of your poems today, and it was so dope. So I appreciate that. And then we have none other than Yuri. Very strong spirited, powerful energy. I definitely appreciate you for joining me, Yuri. It's been a while since we last actually built on the Clubhouse. But we really never forget things. There's really no forgetting. So I appreciate you for just being here. I look forward to your insight. There was a couple things you said earlier when we were talking before everything began that made me think. So I was like, okay, I can't wait to see where this goes. It's going to be great. So remember, this is not all about lofty spiritual talk and this kind of thing. It's all about just profound truths and real life situations and real life scenarios. So that is just as relevant as the higher thoughts that are non-physical. And so, yeah, thank you for being here, Yuri.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to hear what happened.
Absolutely. And so I see Misha just joined. Misha's been on the other builds as well. So the audience that hears this will likely remember Misha. Misha, I'm glad that you can make it. We're literally just getting started right now. And I know we have a few more people, I think, that may be joining us later. And so I'm just thankful to have you guys' presence, have you all's presence here. And this is probably, I'm going to venture out and say this is going to be my favorite build before it even happens, And so I look forward to what's about to unfold right now. So that's who's here right now. So there are other people. I don't want to introduce people that are not here yet. So we're just going to move forward and just jump right into it like we do. So I just wanted to go ahead and set the tone and just set the conversation on what exactly we're talking about right now. So tonight, we're talking about electromagnetism, right? And electromagnetism is what from a polarized or a dualistic viewpoint, we can see as two forces that came into one, right? So we got electricity and we got magnetism. And so we have these two principles joining into one. Um, so someone like myself, who, as a physical form, I'm representing a masculine physical form. Um, I look at it like, okay, electricity is the movement of things, which is masculine, and magnetism is the body of things, or the attracting of things, which is feminine, right? Because that makes sense. Feminine is attractive, right? It's like women, are attractive. That's, to me, that's what represents what is attractive in our world. Of course, women will say, well, men are attractive to you because you're the other side of the equation. So for me, obviously, women are attractive. So it's magnetic. So I'm wondering if, just depending on the perspective, these forces change around. So like the movement force and then the attractive force becomes the opposite if you're viewing it from the other side. And so we talked a lot about how 0 is 1 and 1 is 0. We built on binary code, I think maybe a couple streams ago. We were talking about 0 and 1 and nothingness and infinity, and how these things are actually a part of the same thing. And it's like when you actually realize that you're one of them, you become the other one. Like when you realize that you're everything, which would be 1, now you become 0 again. But then the moment you realize you're nothing, you just realize you're something by realizing that. So it's like now you're 1 again. And it's just like what separates them seems to just be perception. And just be perception. So I just wanted to set it off with, just the different emanations of electromagnetism, and how that goes, and like the different manifestations of that. First of all, I just want to know, do you agree? And I'm asking everybody, anyone who wants to chime in on this, do you agree in the sense that, and I'm looking forward to what Misha has to say about this especially, do you think that electric can be equated to masculine and magnetism can be equated to feminine, as far as like from a force standpoint? Do you agree with that, or do you have like a different perspective on that?
I was gonna fall back and listen, but I'm gonna jump in before I lose this thought. But I've been thinking about that since you first mentioned it, and initially I wasn't able to. Okay, give me a second. I'm on here. I'm gonna give it to you. I'm on a stream. Yeah. So when you initially said that, I couldn't automatically grasp it, but the more that I hear you speak to it and explain it, it makes more sense. And so what you just said was like feminine is so masculine is sort of the movement of things, right? And then the feminine, I forget, so the magnetism, right? The attraction. And so that piece right there, that was really key for me because it just automatically sort of brought all the pieces together. Because magnetism is, I would imagine, the form, right? Like the womb, right? The holding of something. And so I'll stop there, but that's kind of where my mind started to go. And yeah, that made a lot of sense.
Thank you. Anybody? Okay. So, I was, cause I agree with everything you said. Is like, that's really where it starts. Is like, bringing in, we look at the womb, we look at, it's described through the, text like the Bible and different types of different texts. And, the Bhagavad Gita, talks about the nothingness and then all, and, different texts and stuff. So we can see in our own mind, in our own reality, where our own physical form comes out of the darkness, where water is included. and then it is actually birthed into this reality, into a world of what? A world of light, a world based on light that we open our eyes. Now we can see. Sometimes it takes babies this many days to open their eyes, or this amount of time. It's just different or whatever, depending on the situation. And, eventually you open your eyes and now you're in the world of light. And so I think that birthing process is literally breaking down like reality to the deepest degree. Like it's literally like the birthing process is literally showing us, the ultimate levels of the force. I'm sorry.
No, I just said wow. I think again that's just reinforcing the initial point of how, it so complicated but then so simple. Like, yeah.
Right. So there's going to be some. I got some very interesting questions. But I'm going to get to them. But, you know, like I said, if we look at that from like a universal standpoint or like a cosmic standpoint, and let me get my images here. We basically. Oh, I forgot to share the screen. Let me do that. I'm going to share this one. All right, so we can see like on a cosmic level that there are these same two forces. So we see the same two forces. So we have a moon, we have a sun. It's dualism. Like we see the polarization of reality. Like we see it's ever present in all these different emanations. So we look around. We have nature itself. We have time. As the expression of movement. We have nature as the expression of form and all the things that come from nature, like our human form, coming from the substance of what is the physical matter of this world, that we're in right now. And so we see that as like, oh, and then we think about how we use these terms like Mother Nature and Father Time, subconsciously we speak to ourselves, letting ourselves know the truth at all times. And so that's why I was saying earlier in the clubhouse, it was a clubhouse that was happening earlier. I was agreeing that, that the truth is really all, that the lie, what we consider the lie, is actually a part of the truth. It's just like electromagnetism. Like these forces are actually like the other part of the same overall force. And there's a big lesson in that. There's a big lesson in that. When we realize like, okay, male and female, right, which is the physical gender, the human gender part of electromagnetism, right? Because our hearts, which are the same, we like if you look at a female heart and a male heart, they'll be like, oh, this is bigger or that. But, size just equates to like the size of the body. So, of course, it's going to be a bigger body. It's going to be a bigger heart or whatever, however you look at it. But the actual construct of the heart and the way it's set up and the way it works is the same. And so that fundamental aspect of the human, which is like another dimensional portion of yourself. I don't want to get too deep with that, but, it's another part of yourself in another dimension, as we discussed on the last stream. And so the heart, which is the same in both of us, is what is the driving force for the human vehicle that we exist in. You know what I'm saying? So we know that that's a foundational concept that's beyond our perception of polarity or dualism, right? Because it's the same in everybody. It's like it's one heart. It's a heart. And so when we talk about love, right? Is love the same? Can we say like, oh, a male human is capable of expressing love to the degree of a so-called female human, right? Can we say that? Can we say the vice versa, or however you want to look at it? Can one express more love than the other? Does one have a greater capacity? What are we dealing with this force of electromagnetism? Is dualism a thing of balance 50-50, or is it a balance in a sense of 30-70? Is it a balance of 20-80, 80-20, however? I think that we have to examine those things. I think we have to examine those things. Like, what degree of balance are we dealing with with these quote unquote opposing forces, right? Because, I mean, we're opposing forces, but I mean, how can, opposing forces be the same? It's like the force is the same, but it's opposing at the same time. So how could it be the same if it's opposing, which I guess is the paradox again? Because remember, we all have a heart, right? We all have lungs. There's fundamental parts of us that don't depend on gender. Now, we get into the reproductive organs, the reproductive system, in certain parts of the body relating to that, I guess you could say, in a loose way. Then I guess we see changes then from a physical standpoint, where I guess polarity or the temporal nature of the separation is more evident. So like at the root chakra, at the lower point, the separation is more evident. But but what we experience is the focus is more evident, right? Because this is where our physical consciousness is right now, is at the physical part. That's where we're at right now. We're at the physical part, but there's something else happening now, isn't it? Like there's something else happening too. Because is it just physical? I'm not sure. I don't think it's just physical. What is thinking? What is remembering? What's hearing? What do these things turn into once they're processed by the brain? What's the purpose of that? So I just wanted to kind of open it up. I want to get some ideas and perspectives on, what you guys like. What do you all think of the separation of, like, let's take it from a physical standpoint, male and female. Let's keep it let's just start right there on the baseline. Like, okay, physically we can see we're male and female, we're woman and man, and we see how this thing works. We can look with our own eyes and experience. We know men, we're birthed from our mother. That's a fact. Straight facts. Like, we're just spitting facts right now. So we're birthed from our mother. We can all say that. Our father, participated in the process through movement, and dare I say, I'm not gonna say that. It's just the way I could have said it that would have alluded to, like, sex. But we're gonna talk about sex a bit. But, it doesn't have to be in a low frequency way. We're dealing with actual reality here. So we're talking electromagnetism. So in my opinion, sex can only happen between these two opposing forces, so to speak. So when we're expressing that electric is male and magnetism is female, that, to me, that explains why a man and a woman come together and produce creation. Because a child can come from that, right? That interaction. And I'm just, we're not attacking lifestyles, or this is not about that. This is definitely not about anything like that. This is just reality, right? We're just talking reality right now.
I'd like to share a little bit.
Please.
This is Lucifer. Okay.
Please do.
So, when you talk about male and female energies, it makes me think of the sun and the moon. And inside of us, we have two natural biological rhythms that exist. They're called the circadian rhythm, which is the sleep-wake cycle that matches with the sun, and the infradian rhythm, which is the biological rhythm that matches the phases of the moon. And so if we can get on a rhythm that exists with a balance of the sun and the moon, then that's electromagnetism to me. Because you introduced me as a poet, but I've never been a poet before until I got on the rhythm with the sun and the moon. And what happens, I told you this earlier, is that we this epic of time, this shift that we're all feeling, is controlled by a rhyme. That's how I write it in my poem, the epic of time controlled by a rhyme. And so this rhythm that we get on when we balance those energies with the rhythms, the biological rhythms that exist within us, that's how I see the balance. That's how I see the electromagnetism. And that's what happens when we receive the rhyme.
Wow, that's profound. So like a dance.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Oh my gosh, it is a dance. I wrote another poem. It's like a dance in Paris, France, as we find some romance. How's that? Or something like that. It's in one of my poems.
Wow. Bars. Bars. Yeah, I mean, and that's the, so okay. So that makes me think of a lot of things. So okay, so I like how you said, and you drew attention to the rhythm, and you drew attention to like these different rhythms that govern our waking and our sleeping moments, right? It's like the different rhythms, like we got melatonin and serotonin, right? Like we got, you know, the two hormones and stuff, and we have like the appropriate thing. So I've always said like the physical just mirrors like something greater. Like it's not just like what we see as the physical is not just what it is. It's like almost like your shadow doing exactly what you're doing. Like your shadow is copying you because it's based on you. That's how I see the physical. It's like it's based on a greater you, and it's doing what you do on a greater level, whatever that means, right? And so it's the shadow of you. And so, you know, I think it's like we keep seeing like that play. It's back and forth. It's like this back and forth play, like one is the other is one. It's like switching. But I think and I think there's a lot going on with that.
Okay, so I'm gonna add, because
Mhm.
you were talking about the heart, because it really does start in the heart. So the easiest way for me to do this, I'm gonna share one of the poems.
Okay.
I wrote this when I was in Paris, actually, in July. The art of the heart is where we start to play our part. As we soil and toil, our blood boil. When we're scolded, we're molded into a world folded. But when you unfold the cold and the bold, like a child who smiled, and laughter is heard by the fly on the wall, and you listen to the bird, and you follow your call, then forever a happy ever after.
Wow, that was beautiful. Yeah, I think that embodies it perfectly. Like it's like that fulfillment. It's that fulfillment. Okay. I thought I just saw somebody join or something. Okay. But yeah, it's that fulfillment. It's like that dance. So that's what I was about to say. Like that's what I was. You made me think. Remember what I was about to say. Is like if it's a dance, right? That's a good thing. So like so these forces. So the corroboration of the forces, right? Like the dance of them. It's what makes them one, right? Even though somehow they're the opposite in a way. What makes them one is their, it's like, I guess opposition, so-called not opposition in a negative, like, or in a bad way, or yeah, in a bad adverse way, but like opposition in the sense of a mirror, like a image, like a mirror image. So like the opposing part of like the other part of your of something, because
Can I tell you what I found this week when I was looking in the
please.
stars? I found a mirror. It's really close to the constellation. Oh shoot, I'm not going to remember the name of it. It's the name of the Greek letter for L. I can't remember the name, but it's the big boat, the big ship in the sky, and right next to it there's like a mirror. And it's just below Orion, the constellation of Orion. And so when you look through, you see that there's a reflection. I saw it. I shared this on my Instagram page. But you see a reflection of Orion. So it's upside down man, and in there it is the name of a star cluster. And you look it up and you put it into translator, and then you look up what it is, and it's Mohammed. And so, I mean, the connection of the religions comes through the stars in a way that we're not, told or taught. And we find these things. And it's all through the mirror, the mirrored system, the mirror of everything.
Exactly. Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, that is profound. It's absolutely profound. It's we're literally a mirror, and it's like a 0 and 1. Like I said, 0 and 1 are the same thing. And like binary code, we have the dualistic perception. They play off of each other. You build these patterns and things, and that's how we can show that this reality is built, because we just repeat it and do the same thing. And then we make games and, stuff where we have little mini realities and stuff like that and it's all based on binary code initially, foundationally, and it's that 0 and 1, but see, really the 0 and the 1 are the same thing. So it's like in electromagnetism, it's really just one force, even though the name, implies like the two forces combining. Is really one thing, and to examine it further would be to split it into two forces. Like it's something about like putting your attention on it, like putting your focus on it. Like we were talking about, like I mentioned the meerkat earlier, we were talking about the double slit experiment a bit. I just mentioned that in passing, like, that's the particle part of the wave-particle duality. There it is again, another duality, right? Wave-particle. We see with light, they're the same thing. So what does that mean? Well, light is a particle. So that means that, this reality could be entirely light, right? Can be entirely light-based, because light can be a particle. And we can see that with our own experimentation. So it's like, light is also a wave. So it's like light is a wave, sound is a wave. Welcome, Wisdom. I see Wisdom just joined. Welcome, Wisdom.
What's going on, man?
It's all good. We're just getting into the build, and I feel like, these like different forces, like sound too, like vision and sound, for instance, right? Like, okay, boom, light. Are these just forms of light? Like vision and sound, like color and sound. Like we know that there's a relationship, there's a relationship there between sound and color. Especially if you get on your etheric levels and you start perceiving auras and this kind of thing, you can realize that, even though these things are in other dimensions, they still create harmonies throughout the dimensions. We look at the light spectrum, the electromagnetic light spectrum, which is our visible light includes our visible light spectrum within it. And it actually is that same proof that, you have these different dimensions harmonizing to create the beauty of our reality, to create the things around us, So it's the play, it's that ever play, that ever infinite seesaw, and therein lies the wisdom in it. There lies the wisdom, because it's showing us something there. Just like, again, when we put the two forces together and we get a baby, Like we bring the man, the masculine and the feminine together, and it together, boom, we get a child out of that. It's showing you something. You know, that's a bigger reality, you know. And so that's what I was saying, is like the shadow aspect of like one thing is a shadow to another thing. And the shadow does what the actual real thing that's creating the shadow is doing. So what it does is based on that. And I feel like there's a lesson in that here. You know, the shadow is it mimics because it is bound to, it is produced by directly. So it mimics the object that's casting the shadow. And that applies on levels and levels and levels, right? So that's what we see, like these same things apply on different levels. I don't want to just, you know, hog the mic. I mean, I would like to, you know, get some ideas from everybody else on, like, you know, as far as what you feel about the dance between electromagnetism, like when it comes to, like, you know, even like I said, creation. Because think about this, right? I'm gonna just say this and then I'll pass the mic. All right, think about this. You have a you have a woman and a man relationship, and it's like that's what reality's built on, facts. All right, so then that relationship isn't always great. It isn't always the best thing. Like it can be detrimental in many different ways, right? It could be, you know, it could have like a bad outcome, so to speak, in this kind of thing. So it could have that perception of not working, even though it's mimicking true forces that we know work in harmony with each other. So what I'm trying to say is there's something, right? There's a central thing, and hopefully someone can chime in on this. There's a central thing that keeps the dance going. What creates the balance of the dance? That's what we're talking about right now. The sex of it. What is the balance? What is the balance of the dance? Can we identify that? Perhaps we can use just a man and a woman in that relationship and identify it through that, because that's what nature is. It's a microcosm, macrocosm situation where we get the lesson within the lesson. So we can always look at nature and the example of the nature and get that answer and get that micro.
Right. Hey, I'm gonna jump in real quick. I wish I could be so much more present. I didn't have so much that I'm doing in the background, but nevertheless, it makes me think about, you know, when Sanchez talks about this idea of an ether or the North Pole, and it churns and it stirs, and sort of like that figure 8, how that movement happens. Like, I don't know, but like sort of at the center, you could use sex, right? You could dance as these examples of it, but what's in the middle of it, I guess, is right, because you need the energy for all of those things to play out. You need energy for movement to play out. You need energy for form, but yeah, that just came up for me. This idea of the either, the center, and that it turns, and it turns because of energy, right? But in order to have that energy, that goes back to creation itself and sort of the concept of it all, the thought. But in order to have a thought, you still need energy. I don't know.
I like what you're saying. What I'm getting from it is like a vortex. Okay, we've got to reach the point of vortex from
exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. So what is creating the vortex? I mean, in the sense of is this a part of the force? Is that like is this a built-in, you know, functioning of the force? What causes it to where this eternal dance isn't dancing anymore, or like, so to speak? I don't mean to say it like that, but you know what I mean. Like,
right. I think that's why we entertain the idea of assimilation, because this idea of a concept, a thought, a creator, right, who had a thought that then was like. I've heard the example, you know, if I was to tell you right now to, in your mind, think about creating a world. And as you do that, it exists. And once it exists, it just is, right? So, but I think again, that's why we entertain this idea of assimilation, because it's like it was created, and the idea of it being created is, I don't know.
Mm. Hmm.
This is Yori's, and I just want to say just one thing because like the other lady, I wish I could be more present, but if I'm on, I'm just on to what I heard, and okay, so if I'm off, you guys just let me know. But you asked about the dance. I think the force is, I see harmony, and I don't know if that's considered a force or what, but um, that's just what popped in my head was harmony.
That's an awesome thought.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And it seems
So,
like harmony is
yeah.
automatic, right? Like it seems like isn't harmony inherent? Like for instance, like not to say it in a crazy way, but like isn't harmony inherent in like the mother's womb, right? Let's say like this is where creation is coming out of, is springing forth from. Isn't that already built in? Like isn't it already like it knows what to do, right? Like it happens, right? It just happens, right? Or no? Like what
Most
is it?
definitely. Most definitely, because a lot of women are pregnant more often than they know, and most of our pregnancies are
Mhm.
automatically terminated by our body, right? And that's our body's way of sensing sort of something isn't in harmony.
Mm,
Um,
Mm.
I had another thought, it left me, but um, yeah, like what? So the absence of harmony would almost be like chaotic, right? And we see that
Mhm.
play out in different ways. But I think it still goes to your initial question of then who created harmony? But it's an idea in some ways.
mm,
And I'm just thinking about it. What's coming to me is music. It's all musical that I'm where I can, understand from, and even understanding, the harmony. Because if we just listen in, thinking of music as sound, and if you're singing in a choir or you got instruments and you got your alto, you got your soprano, you got the melody, but you know but there's that harmony, and I know that harmony is there. It's there, but it's not always easy to catch it or find it. There's the melody that might be easier to get on, but it's that harmony that you have to kind of like just relax into it or allow yourself to be led to it, and that's how the dance continues because there's harmony.
mm-hmm.
Anyway,
So is it
um,
about,
mhm.
so in a practical reality, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean it's about seeking harmony? Like are people, so like if you have those forces coming together, feminine and masculine, is it about seeking harmony? Like is that what those forces should be
Hmm.
doing? Or are those forces, like what is it like when those forces come together? I felt like they're the same force, like two ends of the same force type of situation, right? So isn't it automatically harmonious? Or I mean, but that's not the case in reality, right? On a base reality. So
Can I
it's
ask the difference between harmony and balance? What would you say?
mm, wow, what an outstanding question.
Damn, wow.
Um, mm, okay, okay. Well, the difference between harmony
Mm,
and
mm,
balance,
mm, mm.
I would say,
Let me look that up.
wisdom. You had
It
something?
made you.
Mm,
I'm just saying, it made you think, man.
mm-hmm.
Mm, yeah, that was a
I'm
heavy one.
bothered right now.
I can see balance being two people or a male, female. There can be balance, but the coming togetherness has to be include harmony. If you think about two souls or spirits or people, and they're in balance, you know, on their own, but in order to come together, there's got to be that point where they're on par,
Right,
harmony.
like you have to seek balance. Harmony exists, and
Mm.
in the pursuit of like balance wouldn't exist without harmony, right? Like
Hmm. Wow. See,
And
that
I'm
sounds like
and
another electromagnetic balance right
Or
there
it
with your
wouldn't
scale.
exist without destruction either.
And it's not just a harmony. The right word I wrote about it, a homogenizing harmony.
yes.
Homogenizing is
Yeah.
to
hmm
blend into a mixture that is the
Yes.
same throughout, to make uniform in structure, composition throughout, to reduce to small particles of uniform size and distribute evenly, usually in a liquid, to reduce the particles of so that they are uniformly small and evenly distributed. So what I wrote is, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about finding inside of our bodies, finding the natural biological rhythms. So resonating frequency within our bodies creates, and this is just one person, whether you're male or female. So it's finding both of those energies, those masculine and feminine energies, to create the homogenizing harmony that matches. And through my experience, this was a few years ago that I was just like, oh, I'm matching the Earth's frequency. I knew that my frequency was matching exactly the same as Mother Earth, and I've been living this for a while, and it's creepy in so many ways, but that's what we get to, is we match the Earth's frequency. The Earth shifts to our frequency, whichever way it happens. But with this process, we get into a state of harmony with nature's natural patterns and co-create heaven here on Earth.
Absolutely. So there's an overall balance or overall harmony, and then an individual balance and harmony that can either be in line with that, right? Or so, I mean, is there, so, because I feel like these are like, man, well, that was a great question, because I do feel like this is another dualistic combination, harmony and balance. Like, I feel like, because I feel like balance is like an action, like to balance, like
yeah.
balancing, like bringing to a balance. Like it's like if you think about bouncing on one foot, it's like you might be shaking and stuff, and you might be leaning and trying to draw yourself to a point, and then you're creating a balance. Now, and like you said, like with harmony, if you think about harmony to play like on a harmonic scale, like I was showing with the music scales and stuff, you got to play certain notes and certain things and certain patterns. So it's like to get that harmony, right? The thing that's it's blending, like that harmonic resonance, that harmonic frequency. It's a well, from a musical standpoint, on a physical, instrument type standpoint, you're hitting notes, certain you're hitting a combination of notes, you know what I'm saying, to create a harmony. But I guess you could, because I
But
mean,
that's
go ahead.
sorry, but like you said, a combination, right? A combination of notes. And and so and that's how I see the the difference between the harmony and the balance, because there's the combination in the harmony. There's a combining aspect. Whereas with the balancing, like it's a singular. Like you can have balance in the harmony combining those two individuals. That's, you know what I mean? the two balanced individuals, two balanced
Mm-hmm.
frequencies, but it's bringing them to into combination. And that's what I'm seeing. Combining that's different between harmony and balance. That's the difference. Makes sense? Hello?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you guys can still hear me. Okay, I'm
Yeah, it was
done.
chopping up just a little bit, but we basically heard you. I pretty much heard everything you said. But
Can I mention something just about
Meerkat, please do.
and
Welcome
hi
to the bill.
everybody.
I know you've been there, but I didn't get a chance to introduce you. But welcome to the bill, Meerkat. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me here, everybody. This is lovely. I was just thinking about the actual physiological aspect of bringing harmony and resonance in the physical body. And when you break it down to our smallest particles, and we start to look at ourselves, within the cell, inside the nucleus, and we go into the smaller than the atom, and we go into looking as each particle of ourself is actually just trillions and trillions and trillions of photons. Now, in terms of when you have trillions and trillions of photons, which is just made out of light, if you break the physical format of our human self, the harmony of what we're working with in our body as a physical structure down to our smallest particles, we are dancing light forms in our photons. But the interesting thing with the balance between light and what you said with music and sound, someone has mentioned, it's a frequency. And so you think of like it's at 963 hertz, it's a healing sound frequency. And often people deeply in their meditation. So when you're sitting inside your meditation and focusing inside the third eye in that space, there's a combination of both connecting to that light and sound. Oh wow, look at you scrolling through all this stuff. Yes, if you look at 963 hertz, you'll find it's a kind of a high resonance frequency that our photons inside us dance to that frequency. So the light particles that each of our atoms and electrons and our cells and the nucleus of our cells and then our cells and then our tissues and then our muscle mass and our fibers are made out of and our blood is made out of. If you think of it as a harmonic dance of life, the smallest, most tiny little bit of our star tendency self is always, oh yeah, there it is, solfeggio. I don't know how to say that properly. It might be solfeggio or solfeggio. But we dance in these various healing frequencies. 528 hertz is what the Earth was always kind of sitting at that frequency, but we are shifting up from that 528 hertz frequency currently. So there's a time-space reality change that we're going through in the planet Earth right now. So it's like feels like time is speeding up, even though the incidences between what feels like something matters, as in the matter in the physical realm from the quantum field, it feels like our incidents and our situations, our circumstances are happening in a shorter, closer together time frame, and that gives us this illusion. Well, anyway, time-space reality, it's not really real in this. We live in a linear timeline according to a Gregorian calendar, according to a clock, but that doesn't make sense at a quantum level. We are far more infinite than that. But when we start to harmonize our bodies to the Earth's frequency and to this speeding up that's happening in the world, we do get a shift from 528 to moving up higher into these healing frequencies. And you can create a combination of these frequencies. I think you guys have it up here on the little screen thing. And a combination of those frequencies. It's all quite mathematical, but it's the dance that actually resonates with our photons. And so some days you might be wanting to hear something in 528 or in 963 or 396 or whatever healing frequency that you tune into. There's billions of them on YouTube. You can listen to them everywhere. And a lot of meditation tapes and stuff. They've always had those frequencies running in the background with binaural beats happening with it. But I just wanted to share that with when we dance and when we love music, there's something happening in our photons that are dancing that light in our cells. And that's the same thing that happens when we sit deeply in meditation. And I believe Dr. Joe Dispenza did a study with a bunch of monks was it at Stanford? And they put on these little like electrode things to their brains to watch what was happening in their frontal lobe and in the brain. And they were actually in a state of the way that all the neurons and everything was firing. It looked like they were sitting completely still in their meditation, upright, still, but their brains were showing that they were virtually expressing the emotions of ecstasy to the point where they would, if they were just like normal people, they would be externally going, oh, like, yes, and laughing and crying of laughter. Yet they were all sitting there in complete stillness, that their brains were firing with all those photons and everything was dancing with that light in that high frequency in their brains when they were watching them in real time, but they were all sitting dead still, not one of them smiling or laughing or moving. So that frequency, that joy frequency, I think we know when we feel that because that joy brings us that harmony, whether it's in music, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through dance, or whether it's whatever it's through, it does shift us at the photonic level. So I just wanted to share that. Hi, sorry I spoke for too long.
No, that was great. That was excellent. I was listening to you, man. That was amazing. This is awesome just to see this healing frequencies, the different healing frequencies laid out like this. It just makes me think of so much. It obviously looks like a flower, you know, but I mean, you know, is this the crown chakra? You know, is this like a larger, you know, representation of the thousand petal lotus? You know.
Yeah, I think this is a representation with the physical world and hearing the frequency with our external ears. And when you talk about balance, you know, I'm a yoga teacher, and the balance that we find in our practice, in our bodies, is due to the liquid that's maintaining the equilibrium in our ears, you know, no different to when a carpenter uses a leveler and they look at the liquid in their leveler to find out what's parallel. And we have the exact same mechanism in the liquid of our ears. So when we find that balance in our equilibrium, when we're in a standing posture, or if you notice, you know, if you anyone here rides motorbikes, you notice when someone riding a motorbike, they tilt their head so they keep their head parallel to the ground when they're riding a motorbike. Doesn't matter how sharp that turn or curve is, they keep the equilibrium in their ears level. And people that sail a lot, they have that awareness when the sailboat is shifting quite a lot. They know to keep their heads or they look at the horizon line to understand where to keep the equilibrium of the liquid that balances us in our ears. Isn't it interesting though that it's in our ears, which is where we hear the most healing sound? And in meditation, I mean, this frequency that's showing that, yeah, like it does become like a flower. This is the external, you know, a lot of classical music tends to follow these patterning and traditional guitar playing and that kind of, a lot of traditional cultural music follows that same Fibonacci experience, like the music unfurls exponentially. But when it comes to human beings, we have the ability to open that inner sound and unlock that inner frequency inside us. So the sound experience is actually inside. And some people, as they get older, they call it tinnitus.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very similar. Funny, those grandmas that get tinnitus and stuff, it's very similar to hearing the higher end frequency, like the 63 hertz frequency, which sounds like a high resonant ringing that often the Tibetan monks would ring those singing bowls to get a representation of what that inner resonant sound is, constantly what we call, you know, Shabad or life force, that feeds and sustains us through the crown, then through the third eye, and then down through the endocrine system from, you know, pituitary and pineal gland and down to thyroid and so on. So it's a practice. And I don't know, I've just gone off on a tangent now, but that is a practice. But I find it interesting that it all stems from the resonant sound that we can hear through the inner ear. And these ones that you're seeing, you know, on this page that's up right now, or the ones that you'll listen to on YouTube or whatever, or listening to a singing bowl on its higher last kind of hit of a singing bowl frequency, it dances to the same tune as the photons because it's that finite. It's a high resonant sound. It's that finite, and that's where healing begins because that's where our life force began. The very first moment of where the sperm peer through to become peer through the egg to become an embryo. That was they say that light and sound moment, that orgasmic creative force, is the exact same resonance that we have access to every single day side. So yeah, I just find it mind blowing. The more I've studied it, the more it just mind blows me.
Wow. It does make you think. Man, I'm actually so grateful just for the build so far, you know. I found myself like feeling very thankful for this build. Man, it's incredible. So it's like harmony is created through balancing, and balance is harmony. Like it's like again, it's like that 0 and 1 thing. It's like one is the other. Once one is like the identity of itself, it becomes the other, which is like that's insane. It's like so it's just constantly flipping because it's as soon as it's that thing and it's aware that it's that thing, now it's the other thing.
Right, like a mirror.
Like a mirror. But that's the crazy dualistic I've never considered. It was the balance and harmony aspect. I mean, that's gorgeous. That's beautiful, man. Wow. Because it's like harmony is like 0, and then it's like balancing is like moving towards 1. When it becomes 1, now it's harmony again.
It's that middle. It's that what's in between before you see your reflection in the mirror. What is that middle space before it actually happens, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. But that was,
Like before it's a reflection.
Yeah. Because there's something working in order for us to see reflection, right? Like, I don't know science, how to speak to it too well, but I know that, light travels at a certain, I guess distance, right? Like it has a speed, I guess I would say. And so it's something in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like before the light reaches your eye type of situation. Like before
right.
You're able to even like the moments before that, or that inner space before that moment.
Right.
It's like what you said, it's in the middle. It's that part, that harmony is like in the middle, right? If you're looking, it's the mirror. And so right there is where it happens that the 1 becomes 0 again, or 0 becomes 1 in that harmonizing area. Yeah.
That's amazing. So that's like action, because that space in between is movement. That's the movement. So that little space between 0 and 1 is movement. So between harmony and balance, it's like this little movement.
Yes.
It's a positive movement.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
But it becomes negative
wow.
when it's complete, and then it's
there you go.
And it's back to 0. Which is the fundamental, like, which is not bad, right?
There you go. Yeah.
And at 0 is when you seek the balance again to have the harmony to be 1.
Wow. Wow, that's profound. So when we find ourselves not in tune, it's because we're not balancing, we're not seeking the harmony. Is that right? Like if we find ourselves not in tune, because
let me think about that.
it's like emotion, right? Like, so because we think
Yeah.
of like time and space, we have to like, yo, whether we want to or not, we have to like participate in time in our reality, in a sense. Of course, that's half true, of course, but like everything is half true. It's like, of course, there's a situation where we don't have to participate in time. Of course, we can get into our mind state, and then we're not participating in time in the same way. But
Right.
You can look at time in another way, and that's what I did a few years ago. I switched to the lunar calendar,
mm,
and what I did with it is I set my intentions by the phases of the moon.
wow, that's amazing. Like that you do that in this time, like you kind of going against the grain in this kind of situation. Like that's beautiful. That I mean,
I like how you said against the grain, because actually what it did is it put me in the flow state.
mm,
I love that. I've been living by the
beautiful.
lunar calendar for many, many years, and I've mentioned earlier to JP, like my body clock is tuned into the lunar cycle, so I'll feel like a full moon and I bleed on a dark moon. Um, I actually have a YouTube channel based on the moon. Anyway, it's kind of funny. But I love that you chose that path because that's the most natural path. Like it makes sense. You plant a seed on the new moon in spring, and you watch it grow, and you watch how much light there is. And the full moon, you watch your plants. They also open up wider on a full moon, and they know to grow and to expand and to shine up a little more. Like nature, for you guys are all probably green thumb people, and you probably like yeah, so like grow lots of like gardens and stuff like that and plants and you watch that and you watch the plants and they know inherently when it's a new moon. They know when it's winter and they shed and you got to trim their leaves and you got to like cull them and give them a really good trimming and clean off lots of stuff and let stuff die away. And then the next new moon cycle you can restart again. And I think humans are we're not that different from plants. And it's so beautiful because we get to when we watch the lunar, which was our original clock, when we watch the lunar cycles, it's very simple to see like, oh yeah, we're on the waxing phase of the moon. It's the time to manifest, to create, to acquire things. And like you said, just like to enter that flow state. And then when it's the waning phase of the moon, after that massive full moon, I mean, we just had that massive lunar eclipse. I watched the other night, and then you watch what happens on the waning phase of the moon, where you just naturally want to let go and shed and clean the house and get rid of things and give things away to the Salvation Army or whatever. And then by the time it just comes to the eve of the dark moon, like I know my body's preparing and it's going to bleed. Like it's so easy. Like you feel like, yeah, I'm shedding. Like it's so easy once we start to ignore a bit of the Gregorian calendar, I think, and we start to just look at that one giant dot outside of planet Earth that's our natural satellite. And we're able to satellite and navigate our own timings really quickly. I was listening earlier before someone was mentioning about seeing a constellation under Orion, and yeah, it's so fascinating when you see everything that's outside of us is so exactly, which is setting the rhythm and the harmony for inside of us. This dance of all the planets going around the sun, and then each of the moons respectively going around their planets, and we're in this really beautiful cosmic dance externally. But when we as humans start to like I think Lucifer, when you said, you're looking at that and you shifted to the lunar calendar, and it brings you straight into a flow state. And that for me as well personally, like going in the ocean regularly and tuning to the cycles of the moon with that ocean as she pulls our tides at the same time. It governs, all that 70 to 80% of liquid on the planet Earth, but it also governs the 70 to 80% of liquid in our blood. So we are mimicking, our bodies mimic planet Earth, like our core is that fire and that combustion and that fire center, and same as the core of the earth, it's where all that toxins get cleaned and expelled and change over and transmute. And then we think about all the trees and the combination of air and oxygen and carbon, and that's the exact combination of carbon and oxygen that we have that are in our lungs, or our Amazonia of our body sits in our lungs. symbiotic with our heart. So it's kind of like, and our land mass is the exact percentage that the earth has got land mass into the density of our bones and the density of our actual skin and physical format of tissue of our element of earth. What's tangible and land mass like in our body is the same percentage of land mass that's on planet Earth. And then you start to think about outside of that element and you go, wow, like the amount that we have access to, the infinite and the unknown, is like when we do look up at the stars and we have, that's our spirituality. That's how infinite and etheric the element of ether is and our spirituality. So it's so wonderful when like we're all, and this is what's so lovely, like these groups are so lovely because we tune in to the cosmic man of us, but then we're able to commune with our reality from Earth and beyond, and how we dance in this cosmos, and we mimic nature exactly. So it's just the coolest. It's just so cool, and I just love that we're even talking about this stuff. Like, just so random, so good.
Absolutely, man. That's powerful. I see, like, so what do you think? So when you say that, then what do you think, like, that means for, like, in a practical situation? Like, let's say about, like dieting, right? Like, or eating. Like, okay, so I noticed something. Okay, we all breathe in the air, but people eat different things. Like, people, the part where you're eating, like your whole digestive dimension, that aspect is something different for different people. Like, everybody's different, like, literally. Like, most people just have their own diet, whatever is going on, you know. I mean, it's not even bound to, like, ethnicity or anything like that. It's, like, literally just individual. Like, so it's like, if that's the case, you know, obviously groups of individuals and cultures and things of this nature, but of course it's still individual, because then you have exceptions to that, etc., right? So, like, if
I think we all have the same. So
so
we all have the same amount of, like, roughly amount of liquid in our bodies, like percentage wise,
yeah,
for our body mass.
we all drink
We all have
water.
about the same. We all, yeah, if we don't drink water. So we all have the same percentage. We mimic planet Earth in our percentages of density of liquid, of our oxygen of and minerals. So those constitutions are identical to planet Earth. But what we do with it, that's individually up to us. So if you want to treat your earth with clean, fresh water, if you want to treat your earth with, the best time physically, so what can we do about it on a practical level? Eating your main meal at midday or when the
No,
sun is
no,
right
no, no.
above your crown.
So like this, right? So like this. So what I mean is, practically, right? Think about this. What is the lesson in nature that shows us that we can eat certain things? Like, you can't eat everything. Like, it's not practical for you to eat every object that's outside. Like, you can't just, like, if you eat a bunch of rocks, it's going to suck for your digestive system. Like, it's going to be very bad, you know? Like, if you could eat probably some small rocks or something. You could probably eat, tree bark, but you can't eat every single thing that's out in nature. It's probably not going to be good for your body at some point. One of those things, there are poisonous plants that are actually poisonous to our body. What do you think the lesson is in that aspect of, because I mean, this is all the electromagnetic spectrum when it deals with nature, the visible light spectrum, and all the light we take in. So on that end of it, the body of it, like that, feminine nature of it, what do you think is the lesson that, taking in something in? Because remember, like, we're taking it in. Even eating is also a dualistic type of situation, because you got the activity of it, then you just taking it in. It's like magnetic, but at the same time, it's like you're eating it. It's an action, it's an action at the same time. So, you can't eat everything. What do you think the lesson in that is? Because usually when we look in nature, it's telling us this thing, like, all the time. Like, it's giving us the big proof all the time. So it's like when we see that the proof that in nature, we know we can't eat everything in nature, you know, so to speak. Or can we? Or am I wrong on that? Because maybe I'm wrong, and maybe we could technically eat everything, you know. I'm open to that. Like,
I don't
if
know
that's
where this. I, I'm not sure where the idea of wanting to eat everything on planet Earth came from. But I got to interview a wonderful nutritionist and naturopath years ago on Bondi Beach Radio, and her name was Tabitha McIntosh. And she wrote the book Nutrition and the Art of Eating. And something I learned from interviewing her was that we need to commune with our food deeply. Like you use all your five senses. So you look at your food, you smell your food, you commune in your mind, speaking with your food, like thinking where it came from, who grew it, and who looked after it, and the elements that allowed it to grow. And then after you've looked at your food, smelt your food, touched your food, then you get to the point where you are in that sense of gratitude for your food. But when you finally take it to your mouth, you spend time to, she used to say this thing, is it, she used to say, drink your food and chew your water. So she would chew her food to the point where it was like liquid in her mouth, so that her enzymes of the saliva in her mouth would absorb the nutrients, and her digestive system didn't have to work as hard to actually absorb the nutrients from the food she was eating. So her stomach didn't have to work so hard to break down the foods into smaller particles. And yeah, Tabitha McIntosh, if anyone wants to look her up, she's she's brilliant. And you know, I got to spend 2 hours with her in the studio, and the way she has reverence of, oh, there she is, yeah, that one bite at a time, yeah, this woman, the amount of reverence she has for the art of eating, it really shifted my view on and how to eat healthy, and how to just commune with my food and give myself that moment, you know, not rush and eat my food in a car, always be seated and let your stomach go into that mode of rest and digest. Um, just little things that can really shift the and giving your digestive system and your metabolism a really, really good shot of absorbing everything that it actually needs to have and absorb from the food you eat to take the nutrients. Um, anyway, yeah. So that's just that. I hope that kind of answered that question. Anybody has any other thoughts or inspiration?
Yeah, any opinions on that? I would love to hear more people's opinions on that, or like thoughts on that, or what do you think about that? I'm just curious. I mean, is this just a mind thing? Like, it kind of relates to everything that's happening and stuff like that. People feel bad, like they're like, oh, you know, I was forced to take the vaccine. I don't even care. I know we're on YouTube, but you know, I was forced to take the vaccine, this or that. You know, many people have told me that kind of thing, like, you know, their job pressured them into this type of situation and this kind of thing, or society. Sometimes society pressured them. Sometimes, you know, just their family. I've heard all of this from people I know, and it's like, you know, I mean, when something like that happens, are we dealing with a situation where, you know, there's a level of us that can cure all, so to speak, or heal all? I mean, is this what we're dealing with when we're dealing with the food, or because, you know, I mean, apparently there's things that, you know, if you eat, it may be detrimental to your health. But then it's different for some people, right?
Everything. Well, you know, it's funny because it's like if someone came up to me and said, "No, but you really have to have the heroin. You have to have the heroin." No, you have to. My friends have had the heroin, and everyone, like, the government wants you to have the heroin, like, or whatever the addictive thing is. At the end of the day, we do govern our bodies. We do govern our mouth. Do govern our bloodstreams. We do govern how much alcohol we do or don't drink. We do govern how much toxicity of foods that we want to choose to eat or not eat, or we do govern if we go, oh, I'm going to have that cream bun, or if I'm going to eat that chocolate cake or whatever. Like, we have freedom And that's why being a sovereign human being and knowing that we are sovereign human beings and we are ultimately the ones that are in charge of this vessel that we've given us. After a certain age, our parents no longer have that responsibility once we can look after ourselves. And I don't think a government, I don't think a system, I don't think a pharmaceutical company, I don't think anybody else really can truly know your body except for the person that's in your body. And I think having our rights and our freedoms slowly taken away is punishing people to not have just the choice of what they want to do with their own bodies. It's your body. You know your body. Like some people know they can have 8 coffees in a day. Other people go like myself. I can't even drink one coffee. I've never had a Panadol in the past 3-4 years. So I don't know. It depends on your particular body, and I think having that right seemingly taken away from everyone right now on planet Earth. It seems wherever we are, it's been tough, and people feeling pressured to do something that they don't want to do, maybe, or they feel pressured because they have to do something. We are sovereign, and I think the more people realize we're a child of the universe. You know, we're huge. We're infinite. We're special. It doesn't matter where we're born or raised. I'm born in South Africa, raised in Australia, heritage is Northwestern Indian, but lived in Brazil, so Portuguese. Like it doesn't really matter. We're human on a planet Earth, and we have the right to govern our human body as we see or as we feel is we want to do with it. I think that choice, that freedom of choice, I wonder if governments are going to stop people from getting piercings, or do you have a risk of infection every time you get a piercing, or like it can get too far away from the fact that we are sovereign beings with our own digestive system. We all have very different immune systems. We have an endocrine system that we've got to balance out all the time, and I feel like, and on top of that, of course, our muscular system and our skeletal system and our digestive system and everything else on top of it, but our nervous system is being stressed to the point no one's talking about that most of us are living in a state of fight and flight constantly. So and stress is the number one killer. It aggravates everything from cancer to tumors to everything. And how come governments don't stop and go, let's all decide to live a stress-free life, because that's a number one killer. We're going to remove that because it's upsetting everybody's nervous system. Instead, we're kind of falling into a fear-based society where people's nervous systems are being actively put into that state of fight and flight and moving away from homeostasis. And that's why I think this group is pretty special, that we're thinking about ways to bring our body into a state of rest and digest. We're thinking about those things that are between that binary code of 1 and 0, 1 and 0, 0, 1 and 1 and 0, 0, 1, like where we originally came from, which is far more powerful than what government needs to tell a citizen of a country. It's a very limited way of looking at things. If we look at ourselves as energetic sovereign beings on a planet that's dancing around the sun in this particular solar system, in this particular galaxy, in our Milky Way, this particular universe, we haven't even entered the multiverses. So this is where, when we start to think of ourselves like that little speck of dust, we realize the bigger operation system of the infinite aspect that we are connected to. Then we remember we are sovereign. We have the ability to grow and allow ourselves to develop as they want to, according to our free will and choice. So yeah, okay, I'll put my mic down now on that. I get a bit excited about that.
No, I definitely appreciate the energy, man. Definitely. It's very real. It's very real. This is where we're at. This is real life. We're in this movie, guys. It's amazing. We're not just front row. We're actually in the movie. Like, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wisdom.
No, I was no, I'm just saying we operate out of nature. If we don't operate out of nature, then that's when the complications and everything else happens. Like she said about food and everything like that. You said about eating raw, right? You said something about eating raw. You remember that?
You're eating raw?
Rocks, right?
Or eating rocks, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just think it's something in our code that's innately in us that know what and what not to do, but we're not really operating out of nature. We're not really in nature. We're in like inner cities. Cause think about if all this stuff wasn't here, what would we be doing? What would we be acting like? Like when I say it's in our code to do certain things, I mean like how does a baby know to like breastfeed? If you ever seen a baby after a mother has a child and she holds her up, how does she know to go for the breast to get the milk? You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I something in our code that when we're in nature and it's something and we have all these veins that's pumped into us when we first are born, and you know all these foods that damage our nervous system so we can't navigate. All this is just disrupt the energy vibration and our frequency and everything like that. I think like when we're operating like that, then you know complications happen. So
Mm. That makes sense, and that's the real fascinating part of it.
every
Yeah, that's the fascinating part about the conversation. It's like there's a some kind of frequency because look, because like you just said, right? There's a place. Let's call it like maybe it's in a subconscious realm or something. And I don't know if you had
yeah,
something to say, Yuri, but real quick, let me just say this real quick. Um, there's a place that it makes sense, like it's in harmony already, like it already knows what to do. So it's like getting in like Lucifer said, in the current of that, like you're in current, like you're
right.
you're you're going with, like you're going
It's
with
already
it.
perfect.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
you're going with that whatever, that lower, like that current, that's where everything exists in harmony already, where like the baby knows what to do, this knows, the instinct, like it's like that balance, it's already happened. Like it is that. It's like a current of that or something. Like it's an energetic, almost like an energetic frequency. And
right,
I feel like we can be in tune with that,
right.
which, is a matter of perception, right? It's a matter of perception. So, you know, like I was saying with, I don't, Yuri, were you saying something, Yuri? Were you about to say something? I didn't want to keep going. I think you were about to say something. I'm unable to hear you. I don't know if it's just me.
I don't
She's
think
still there.
they're saying anything. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing's coming through, Yuri. Yuri, I'm sorry. I'm saying Yuri like it's a U. It's what's wrong with me? Yeah, I don't know if the mic is muted or I couldn't hear you talk. I couldn't hear you. Couldn't hear you, Yuri. It could be. It's not the muted mic. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened. The volume is not. I see you unmuting your mic, but it does. No sound is coming through. Okay. Yeah, but I feel like there's like a frequency where we can be at balance, where harmony happens. It's like where harmony lives at. It's almost like we're building to become one again, so we could become zero again, but in a positive way, right? Because you could do that in a negative way, and I feel like the powers that be, so-called quote unquote powers that be, or whatever, these perpetual boogeyman figures, that these shadow figures, right? I mean, it's appropriate that they're called shadow government and shadow figures, right? Because what is the shadow? A lesser dimension reflection of an object blocking out light.
Yeah.
So that's what it's doing. These guys are like they have a superiority complex where they see themselves as like, oh, we're this a small group of people can rule 95% of humanity and this and that, right? But really, you know, they have to be on a certain level of like delusion to play that role. And that's what I constantly tell people is like, you know, that's not a role you would want to play. So you have to have empathy for your lower self, like we talked about, and actually see that these people, you know, are playing a role for you. You know, like this still a part of the same bigger picture. They're playing that role, so you don't have to, so to speak. Which, you know, is what it is, right? Because it's all about that pursuit. I talk about the upward motion of the Taurus and the downward motion of the Taurus. Wax on, wax off. Yeah, those guys are on that downward motion, going from crown to root instead of root to crown. You know, and that's that perception, that perpetual perception of falling, the fallen ones. And so you're falling into deeper and deeper reality constructs. And so, listen. Now these guys, it's almost like this perception of unification coming to one is almost like it's on both sides of the negative one and the positive one, so to speak. Like it's almost both identities about to be met, and then it reduces down to that zero. So which zero? Because there's a negative zero and a positive zero, and what's the difference between those zeros is the direction that it's coming from to become one again. So if it's a negative zero, that means it's poised to start moving in a negative direction to become a negative one. If it's a positive, it's moving in a positive direction to become a positive one. But, you know, zero is zero and one is one at the end of the day. But, you know, I think that's what separates, so to speak, the people that are on an upward motion and then on a lower motion. So, you know, when we have reality constructs, we see the layers of reality. And so you find yourself rising like this into various Tauruses, you know, rising from one into the next. And, you know, these seemingly infinite kinds of existences, heavenly realms, what we might refer to as heavenly because they would be like above us, so to speak, right? And then you have hellish kind of situations where it's more shrinking into the self. So to me, the portal is opening for the hellish realms as well as the heavenly. And it's not a bad thing, you know, it's just which way you're going. So, you know, if you're going on a downward motion, then prepare for that, because what's going to happen is, you know, this metaverse thing that's coming, you know, that sounds like a portal into a lower world, a lower realm. So, which is an inner realm, because these are all inner realms, higher and lower. So the lower is an inner realm and the higher is an inner realm. But one is cable connection and one is Wi-Fi. You know, and so it's like this is the unseen, like, you know, but the Taurus is still the Taurus, right? We still are in the cycle. So what's reincarnation is cycling in the same Taurus, or the perception of the same Taurus reality, cycling in that same Taurus reality and coming back. You know, and I think a lot of people wanted that to happen, like because of their delusion. And so when they're pushing certain realities and things like that, it's just their fear. But remember, fear is that direction. That's the direction of fear. Love is the other direction, cycling upwards, having that perception of growth. It's just two forces. It's not that other force is irrelevant or bad or anything like that. It's just two forces. And so it's love and fear. And fear is a thing. Like fear is a part of love. Like, that's what we got to realize. Like, fear is a part of love. And so the question becomes, what is fear to love, or what is love to fear? You know, why fear if you love? But what you get the perception of, you get that zero mentality where it's like you realize that the other one is inside the other one. Like they're like it includes the other one, that yin yang kind of situation where there's a little bit of one in the other. And that perception flips, and then boom, the one is the other, and then there's still a little bit of one in the other, and then the one is the other, and then there's a little bit of one in the other, and it just does that. And that's the dance of the toroidal field that we have going. So all that being said, I don't want to just hog the mic. I'm just saying that, you know, it's all about the direction you're going. You know, which direction are we going? And that's just a perception. It's all a perception. So it's the direction that we're perceiving that we're going, moving on up, moving on down. It's either way. It's up or it's down, you know? And so down is, you know, what is down? I mean, that's a great question that just popped in my head. What is down? You know, so see, you know how you can have like YouTube chat? Well, what if somebody just like chatted that into my head, like do telepathy? Like, it was like, let me ask him this question. Like, yo, so say this question. Okay, what is down then? Well, what is down?
Down is up.
Down is up, because guess what? In the torus field, it circles back up to the top again. So down is up. The zero, the donut, you know, like our blood cells. It makes it's down is up. So it's like it's still that same thing, even when it became something different. It was just a perception change. So
But this right here is where we bring in the free will of our intention. Because I wrote a poem on this. I said at the very end, it was, when forward is backward, what is your intention set toward? And this is the same story that was, you know, this is through cycles of time. This story has been told over and over, always looking at the intention. It was an old story of the rainbow serpent from the Aboriginal story. So the rainbow serpent is very similar to the story of this. He came to bring the rain, and he saved the flood. It was the serpent, and he made sure everybody's intention was for good or for life. And everybody's intention that wasn't for life, they would get washed away with the rain. And so today, looking at today, the life or the water, the rains, the living water, it's inside of us. So that's the hexagonal structures that are in the flower of life, like the 963 frequency. There's hexagonal structures in there, and it's like Dr. Emoto's study on water, on talking to water, and on the snowflakes. You could see the difference with the snowflakes, the positive or negative frequency that they carry by their shapes. And it's all about the intention that we set that makes the difference. So this right here, again, I'm going to connect the moon, and this is what I would do every time. The moon phase is where my intention would lie. So in a waxing phase, I would set an intention for growth. And in a waning phase, I would set my intention to detoxify or to lessen something from my life.
So Lucifer, during this eclipse in Taurus, what was one of your intentions? Did you do a specific intention for eclipse?
My intention for the eclipse was just for awareness, because it was in a, yeah, truth and awareness was what it was.
Yeah, no.
Hmm. So is that so? Are there an equal amount of waxing and waning phases of the moon? Is that an equal amount?
Oh, yes. Okay, so the 14 days of each cycle, because a full cycle of the moon is 28 days, but we do have the full moon and the new moon in every 28-day cycle. So if you want to take out 2 days of that, or if you want to, it gets a little complicated, because 3 days before the full moon, 3 days after the full moon, it carries the energy, starts bringing the energy of the full moon. You still have it 3 days after. Same with the new moon energy. I like to play with one day before, one day after, carrying the full and the new moon energy, and using the full moon and the new moon as a reset period in the life, either to finish a project or to start a completely new intention, a new project. So it's, I still like to refer to it as 14 days waxing and 14 days waning. But if you want to do 13 each way, however you want to look at it.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's fascinating. I always thought that was fascinating. There are multiple ancient cultures that that's what they do. They went by the moon and stuff like that. Um, and is that more of a precise like measurement when it comes to like a calendar based on the moon as opposed to the sun, or is it because of the leap year or?
Well, there's 13 lunar calendar months exactly in 1 year. So if you look at 365 days
Mm-hmm.
and you divide that, that's how our actual that's how our actual Earth does one revolution around the sun. It does it in 13 lunar cycles.
Hmm.
So it isn't this, when the Gregorian calendar was invented by the church, that was to control the people, that the people lost the power and connection, so that they wouldn't set their intentions on a new moon, but the churchmen did. Like, India and China, ironically, the two largest populations on the planet Earth, China celebrate New Year on the new moon, generally around the new moon in February. Indians celebrate their New Year last 2 weeks ago from that full moon. So we just finished our New Year period from new moon to full moon, which ended yesterday. So the two largest populations on planet Earth, China and India, still really consciously practice all our celebrations on around the new moon and the full moon. And, even like, I'm here in Australia, and the Aboriginal culture, if they're going to do corroboree, they do it on a full moon, which is corroboree is like the gathering of people. They play didge, and their local community will get together. They do that under the light of the full moon. And if you look at pagan times, that's what they did the same. When it was full moon, men and women come together. In a lot of African countries, when they do their tribal ceremonies, like a mating ceremony almost, the men would dance with the women on the full moon. And as the men wet, the women would be the most alpha female and alpha male would both be attracted to one another because of the sweat and the pheromones released off of their skin. And the strongest female would be attracted to the strongest male just through the smelling of their pheromones. And they always knew that that was the couple that would head the tribe and have the most children to keep their tribe going. This all has always occurred. Gatherings like this of the masculine and feminine gathered has traditionally and tribally have always occurred on a full moon.
Hmm.
Generally, like a lot of Middle Eastern countries, when it's a dark moon and women were menstruating, the women would stay away from the husbands and the men, and they would stay with their women they would be in their Menses cycle together, bleeding together. But a lot of this wisdom has been taken away by things like we have so much natural, artificial street light. We have so much light pollution. We have women that have gone on contraceptive pills, which stops the natural flow of their hormones and increases the amount of testosterone they have. So we've meddled with. I think was it Wisdom was talking about earlier. Like we've meddled with that innate, subconscious, nurturing, natural aspect of human life to trust the way it develops, the way that small baby knows I need to find my mum's breast to drink to live, you know. So it's interesting that we've come to this place now, which I think Lucifer has discovered in her practices, just going, and so many women have practicing full cycle, like we go full back to minusing that Gregorian calendar out of our lives, and we start to follow the natural rhythms of the planet. And there's a movement, I don't know if you guys have it, probably sure, I'm sure you'd have it in America, called Red Tent. And red tent groups are all around the world, and where women get together and menstruate together and sit in circle together. It's just, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's
Never
just
heard of that until now. Wow.
yeah. Well, generally men don't hear it very
That's
often.
crazy.
But there's a big red tent movement in Australia, and every state has their red tent groups where women can just join a red tent group during the dark moon and sit with their sisters and discuss the nature of what their past month of their lunar cycle was like, and amongst other things. But this kind of, that's a very feminine thing to do. And if more and more women did do that, it would give that space for when it's that stage when women are in their lunar cycle, in their menses, the men would be together and the men would be in their masculine, in their yang, and rites of passage and the masculine mentoring. The grandfathers would speak to the sons, would speak to the grandchildren, and those kind of learnings would get passed on. But because of the breakdown in society, we don't really have those strong as much. Those, you can't just go to your neighbor's house or get groups of people in your local area and all the men gather at a certain time and stand together as sovereign men, and all the women get together and stand together as sovereign women. The community has been broken down largely by the fact that we are all governed people. So we create these little separate identities. So, and it takes us away from nature. But I think more and more, all this is happening so perfectly because it's making us really think about our natural self, which is a gift. I think if we all go back to just communing with that natural part of our conscious, maybe from our subconscious, and bring it to more like what Lucifer was doing, as a more conscious action, rather than just something that's just like, oh yeah, there's a moon, there's a sun, there's a sky, there's water, there's land. Like, instead it becomes more of we as humans have a relationship to that natural world around us, and we develop that natural relationship like most Aboriginal cultures do. And I feel like that's something wrongly that's missing in society now with this technological age, that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just trying to see if Yori was saying something. I don't think so, though.
Yori, where are you?
It's muted. I don't know if it's could be the connection.
I think she need to go into her settings. I don't know if she's. Hold on.
It could be the settings, or you know what? Sometimes you may have to
She
completely
could
close
mute it
it.
in the settings.
Yeah, you could go into settings and check the voice settings, or sometimes if you close the app completely out, like say if you open Clubhouse or something like that, it may have taken over the mic or something. Sometimes that happens, like the mic is stuck on a program or something like that, a different program, or something like that. I'm not sure. Just trying to offer some help. But I mean, I think that's fascinating. Man, This has been a fantastic build. There are some a few more things I do want to get into. Um, and so I wanted to kind of shift the gears a little bit into like speculation mode. We've been building on some wonderful, beautiful. So actually, you know what? Before we shift the gears to speculation mode, I did have a follow up question to what you just said, Meerkat. I was gonna ask, what what do you think, or like, what do you think is like, okay, if we look at because we can see everything mirroring itself throughout like this eternity and all that. What do you think is the meaning, so to speak, of like, or higher meanings of like sun and moon? Like, what is the moon? Like, how does it speak to us? Like, what is the moon really reflecting? Because as we see, nature reflects itself. What is the moon reflecting of us?
The moon reflects our emotional body,
Mm-hmm.
our nighttime self, our relationship, our intuition, our water, our feminine ability to flow, our ability to understand the liquids in our body, our tidal rhythm. So the lunar cycle gives us a really easy flowing rhythm that nature has always followed. The sun gives us a constant, something that is always there, that we revolve around it, that the moon revolves around us. Our emotions change around us. The sun, we revolve around it. The masculine, the energy, the shining, that power that we're able to receive. We revolve around that fire element, that warmth, that growing, that photosynthesis. But the moon is our emotional body. The sun's more linked to our purpose, and the moon is more linked to our intuition and our creative nourishment, our nurturing self. So, and it's ever changing. You think of that. What is that? I always think of that sempre cresces. That dramatic piece. I can't think of the name. O Fortuna. And that whole O Fortuna masterpiece is written about the moon and the madness of the woman being that moon. She's always changing. She's ever changing. She's sometimes powerful and shining, then she's weak and meek, and then she's growing and she's waxing, she's waning, and that whole masterpiece was written. So O Fortuna was written about the moon, but the moon really does represent our emotional body, and I think that's
Wow.
something that we need to attend. 50% of our life we need to attend to how we feel, how our tears flow, how the liquid in our body moves, even how we urinate, what color we urinate, how much liquid we drink. It governs our kidneys. It's our waters. So, I think the liquid is a really, really important part of what our tide, the waves of the oceans. I think the moon gives us that rhythm, the rhythm of the cycles of natural life in our emotional and feminine body. And the sun is that constant in that world of variables. That's how I would answer that question. If anybody else wants to share.
Can you guys
Yes,
hear me?
Yeah, can hear you now, Yori.
Okay.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
back. I did that. I did the thing. Someone had called me, and I think it's what you said, JP. My microphone got caught up in another app. But hmm, I was just listening to the sister that was just speaking, and it was just really deep. And some of it I never heard, but I knew it. I know it. So yeah, and I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to maybe ask you if it's okay, or maybe in another time you can tell me, how do you know that?
You mean the practice of
Just
connecting to the moon?
yeah, just how is it? Because even like I don't want to say I know that, what you just said. It's like no one ever told me that, You know what I mean? I know that, and I know that even the red tent, I know that that's right, and I know that every just what you were saying, and I had never heard it, but it's like, yeah, that's right.
And
So,
traditionally, so many cultures do that, and it's been taken away from us to,
mm-hmm,
when women get together and bleed together, such a deep-rooted bond that happens, and we're no
Mm,
longer in competition with each other.
mm-hmm,
We love each other, like we respect and love each other. We cry for each other. We feel the feminine. We literally feel the tears as each other's tears. We're so empathetic with other women when we're in that space together. We eat chocolate
mm.
together, like most red tent circles. We always eat chocolate together. That's part
Wow.
of it. That's always a big bowl of
right.
chocolate in the room.
Because I've heard of,
It has to be.
no, not to interject, but this just popping out at me. I heard that like women can join cycles. Like your cycle will become like if you're around other women, like you guys sync. Like it comes into sync.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I heard that.
okay, so if
Yes, if you have mates in college, everybody's at the same time. Yeah.
hmm, so
And that's
okay,
because we breathe in each other's pheromones. So
I was
when,
gonna say.
you know,
So I was gonna say
yeah, the
what
of a
what
woman changes.
you were kind of saying it. I wanted you to continue to build on that, Meerkat, but I just wanted to interject and kind of just say like, okay, so when you guys are syncing or if it syncs, what do you think is the larger meaning of that? Like, is it like you kind of mentioned you were like you guys are not beefing, like you notice these women are kind of like in the same emotional place, or are you able to have more empathy, or what? I mean, like if you could build on like what have you noticed in the syncing process, if
Um,
anything.
I Yeah, like I mean, I hosted Red Tent Women's Circles for about 4 years, and every single month on a dark moon. I've given that away now because I'm getting a lot more music gigs. Actually, I have one. I've got to go in about 10 minutes because I've got to get ready for another gig tonight. Um, but so what I noticed with the Red Tent Women's Circles was that the women that got together in those circles, and we all shared in circle. We all had like one crystal, and we'd pass it around the group, kind of like a talking stick, and we'd pass that crystal around the group. And as when the woman held the shell or the crystal, she got the opportunity to share her past month, her greatest fears, her emotional roller coaster, what she's been feeling in her physical body, where she's at in her cycle, um, and really just share where she's at. And then women in that circle would bond, and then we'd go to the next person, the next person, the next person, and there'd be an energy of empathy that I've never experienced so quickly in a room of women together. You can go to a party, like I've been to so many Christmas parties and work parties, and you see all the women, right? And it's just, there's this edge of competition or some kind of like people look at each other up and down a little bit, and there's this enviousness that could be in that space. But I noticed with the women in the Red Tent Circle that are all connecting month after month with one another, being very vulnerable in a safe, shared space, and connecting with the dark moon in that darkness where it's okay for them to sit in a circle in their pajamas and they don't care. They can have chocolate together, hot chocolate together, and we all sit on the ground in circle on these big red blankets and pillows and stuff. And usually it's at a women's house, so somebody hosts it. And we get to be in that vulnerability that often the men don't need to see us in that heightened, erratic, emotional state because they don't go through same amount of hormonal like shifting that we go through. We do sync up because we breathe in each other's pheromones, especially if we're not on the pill, then we understand our bodies do naturally. We're meant to sync up. It's a natural part of us. But when we're on the pill or when we're being very separated from women, we don't actually sync up with anyone, and that's when women can fall into depression. Even their thyroid functions differently. When we as women gather, because we're so empathetic and intuitive, especially when women are sharing from the heart, they're most yeah. There's the cycles right there, so you'll see there's all the calendar months, but there's 13 lunar cycles to make that. But when women empathize deeply, there is no space for competition because there's only compassion because you love them and you understand where they're at. You understand because you've been through what they've gone through or you're about to go through what they're going to go through. So and you get all women from all different ages, from 18 all the way up to 70 years old in these groups. So you have crone women that are the older women. You have the younger women that have just had babies, or then you get the very young girls that are just starting their cycles and stuff, and they've just found out about red tent women's circles. And they're generally very cheap. They're like $5 or something like that just to attend and to contribute to the food, or you just bring a plate of food to share or chocolate to share or something. And it's very simple, and there's a tea, and you just all sit on the ground and relax together. That space, that's always been there through history of time. Women have always had that feeling to sit and gather. Have you ever been to a party and then in the middle of the section of the kitchen, there's a whole bunch of women around the kettle and everyone's crowded in the kitchen? And that's because women naturally gravitate to commune and to empathize and to share with one another. And the kind of wisdom that culturally we've always meant to have in all our societies as communities. But when this backbone gets broken down, women start to become more masculine. They separate. They don't feel unity. They don't feel feminine. They feel more detached from the element of water, feel detached from the intuition that they have inside themselves. They have more self-doubt. They have lower self-esteem, and they feel very separate. And then their own creativity gets washed down. And that doesn't help the masculine partner or the masculine people in their life. The masculine people want to feel like they're with a woman that's comfortable in herself, to just be chill, to be who she is, to express herself, and to stand in her own grace. And that's definitely been beaten out of women's society. And so, therefore, the men feel like, God, these women are trying to compete with me. They're arguing with me. It's because their testosterone levels are higher than ever before. It's because you hear about women going through menopause, the estrogen levels are plummeting. This is unheard of. They're getting put on T3 and all these hormones.
So, but I hear the same thing they say that about testosterone. They say the exact same thing. They're like, oh, the testosterone levels are plummeting. Like, universally, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm just saying that's what's said out. So, I mean, is it estrogen and testosterone are plummeting, or like what?
I think testosterone is
for men and girls.
Yeah,
men and
because I hear it on the men's side, like that's a thing that it's like a little kind of hype. I
Yeah,
don't want to call it.
Men nowadays
Yeah.
have higher estrogen levels.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
you can
from
even
the soy and the milk and the dairy that's pumped with the chemicals, and also they pump it with like steroidal hormones so it can beef up the cows.
and chickens. It's huge in Australia. Chickens.
Yeah, chicken is
Hormone-fed
horribly
chicken.
just filled with hormones. Yeah.
So am I understanding that this is happening in the opposite way for women? Is that correct?
Yep.
Or
Yeah, it's like women are losing, that estrogen, and men are losing testosterone, and we're like becoming. It's like we're mixed up. It's not balanced.
It's not balanced.
And that's why we can't have so often, like you had said, kind of said it a little bit earlier, JP. It's like we can't get in harmony with one another because of the imbalance. We're not operating
out of nature.
We're out of nature. And like, I don't know, sister, what's your name? You were talking. I don't know which name is which. I'm sorry. You were talking about the red tent,
that's Meerkat.
Meerkat. Yeah. So
my name is Mira. I don't know. My name is Mira.
Yeah. Mira. Wow.
Yeah.
Mira. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's your name. Mira.
Both of you guys got very cool names. Mira and Yori. Yeah, you guys' names are awesome. I like that.
But thank you, JP. But that was just so like about all of the balance that women were doing, but I don't know why they didn't want us to do it. I think it was taken out of, being traditional for some reason. And
it started when the church started to lose power, and they used to call the women that were empowered, because the women that were empowered, they were all together, they were harmonious, they weren't competing with one another, and they called them, the pagan witches.
The witches, yeah, right.
So they really killed that out of and the
The
culture was killed off.
yeah, it's like the femininity was like, don't be that way, even with all of the, the word hysterectomy, and you touched on that when you were talking about how the tent in the red tent, we're going, we know our emotional, we know women and how we change, we understand it, and we're comfortable with that because it's natural for us. But the way society has um, twisted and changed things, it's like you're not supposed to be like that. And so, they didn't want us to be that way. And there was then, all it started with that whole hysterectomy, and even the word, the like you're hysterical. We remove this part of your body so that you won't be hysterical. Women are hysterical. Women are like the moon,
Lunatic, like lunatic.
Yeah.
Lunatic, yeah, it comes from the word
Yeah.
lunar.
Yeah. And that's
And the
okay.
thing,
It was we're supposed to be that way. That we're made that way for a reason. God did that. Just and but it was removed. And I don't really understand that whole part. I think maybe perhaps like you were saying, the power of the church being diminished, and with knowing that how much power women do have when we are allowed to be who God made us to be, who we were created to be, and it gives life, and we give life, right? We bring life, and even in, not even just in the sense of a person or a body, but in spirit. And we're even to give life to our men. We feed life, and it's a back and forth thing, That's what we're supposed to. We have something to give to, you know, just not just having children, but to feed their life and their strength and everything. But somehow being taken away has created a whole lot of imbalance. Just that started taking a woman our right to be with, Anyway, I'm done talking, Lori.
No, I
oh,
appreciate that.
you're so passionate. Oh my goodness, you're so cute. I just want to hug you. You're so cute.
That's nice. I need a hug. So thank
I'm
you.
sending a hug from Australia.
I'm giving you one back from over here in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, you guys are wonderful. And I just like JP, thank you for being a strong masculine man that can attract
Yeah.
women to be themselves and to
Yes.
it's just
It's
beautiful.
very
I had no idea. I had no
it's,
idea we were going to go this far into like red tent and lunar cycles and bleeding on the dark moon and ovulating on a full moon and connecting with women. I had no idea. And it's so beautiful that you gave us the space.
yes. That's a
Yeah.
and you know what? I have to say it's very um I don't know if I should say. I'm gonna just be me, okay? You guys don't judge me. I'm very sexual, and so when a lot of type of energy gets me feeling that way, it just makes me feel alive. I don't know how else to say it. So I don't know how else to say it, but it's a very it allows me to feel so, because of this the whole thing is just allowing me to feel me and be the woman that I am, and I know I'm all woman, and I just I don't know, it's a part of me that just makes me know I'm alive. And so I guess that's why I have a propensity to feel that I'm that way, because I feel it makes me know I'm alive. And so, it's just really great and wonderful and exhilarating and stimulating and rejuvenating and igniting to, have the fact that the masculine energy and the feminine energy, and we can talk about it together. That's exhilarating.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think I'm sorry. Somebody talking.
No, I was saying I'm done
Oh.
talking.
Yeah, no, I think just to continue what you're saying, it's like, I think most folks in the world, and this is my experience, I can't speak to anyone else's, but and I guess just to be even more specific, a lot of men, just because we're talking about this, right? In my everyday sort of exchange, I could even say deeper than every day, like every year now. But most men really don't vibrate on a frequency that allows women to sort of feel safe, feel vulnerable, right? And I think again, we can always, like, it always goes back to duality and this, that idea, because the natures that be, right, whatever, the negative forces are trying to disrupt that in so many ways. And so oftentimes the men are either, I don't know, more feminine, right, in terms of the emotional level, the inability to be sort of still and masculine, and that logic part, right, or whether it's women who feel the need to be more masculine, right, because of experiences, so sort of, yeah, again, nature's at B trying to disrupt that natural balance. But to basic, yeah, so what you're speaking to is like, I think just recognizing that, like, it is actually at this day and time pretty rare to have that sort of unison between men and women. It's always, more often than not, a battle or a struggle between the two. So yeah, thank you for the space. We appreciate it.
Most definitely, man. You guys really warm my heart. Like, it's just beautiful to just be in your presence, and to hear the wisdom that has been imparted. I mean, it's incredible. There, man. I mean, the build has been phenomenal, as I predicted. Not to make it an ego thing, but I already knew the energy and things like that. But these, the whole thing of this is to, be able to actually go back and get the jewels that, that have been dropped and everything like that. So,
oh yeah.
There were a couple more things to touch on before we close out here. I know everybody has things to do and stuff like that. I appreciate you guys for just taking the time out of your existence to speak to who might hear this, those who might hear this. And so we definitely appreciate you for your participation. And so it kind of segue right into it too. What we were talking about right now. It kind of just segues right into these other couple of things. And there's no real easy way to bring it out. So I'm just gonna bring it out. And I really want some honest opinions. And again, remember, I had said that we're kind of speculating at this point. So this is just opinions. This is not just you should be comfortable with your opinion and just expressing yourself exactly as it is, because this will be of value to another person, right? All right. So when we talk about these energies, we talk about everything that was just said. I mean, right on the money. I'm right there with you. I even take it further, and I don't want to be some kind of conspiracy theorist, but I take it further and say that, hey, the demonization of the feminine that has been like the campaign of these churches and religious bodies and secret societies is actually still, something that has recently been occurring up, and for the purpose of disrupting that side of the equation, thereby disabling the power of the equation, which would be masculine and feminine together. So, disabling one side is going to disable both sides, ultimately. So I feel like these campaigns have been waged, and this is just the perception and how it's played out in our space and time. It's these campaigns of these religious bodies and these structures that, have made it their point to minimize, and no longer making it a balance. It's like now it's a minimal portrayal of the feminine, just like the moon. We can literally look at the sun and the moon. Like the sun is like this glorious thing. Like everybody's like, oh, the sun, it's like, nobody's really like, of course, some people are, of course, there are those, but it's not the celebrity of the, you look at the sun. The sun is like a celebrity. It's like, everybody's like, yeah, the sun. It's like, yeah, and then, it's like, let's go to the beach. It's like all these circumstances happen with the sun. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go harvest the food, and the sun. But it's all the moon too. You harvest in the moon too, but it's a balance. It is a balance. But I just feel like, of course, with the waning and the swinging of the pendulum, of course, it has swung away
There
to a
you
point
go.
where,
Yeah.
yeah, it minimized that feminine, and because of that, now of course it's swinging back now on the rise, where the feminine is coming back to that balance and being respected and seen for really what it is. It's like, by doing that, we engage in delusion, when we actually minimize one or the other, because actually, as we've determined through this whole conversation, it's a balance. It's a dance that creates harmony. It's a harmonic dance.
Right. It's a trip, that you said that, and it's funny how our conversations, they always seem to have this theme that almost is revolving and getting always to the same point, and we can sort of have the sort of width, like the width, I don't know, is a word, withspan to go there, but it's always just pushing you to this point. And so, when you said the swinging of the pendulum, it made me think like there's nothing new under the sun. And again, like what has been will always be. So um, grateful, like you said earlier, for the conversation, to be able to ponder on these ideas in this capacity.
Absolutely. So I just brought that back to get to the tough questions. So because I got a couple things left, like I said. So here it comes. So
Yeah.
so basically, and I want honest opinions on this. When we talk about these energies being imbalanced and the attack on the divine feminine and this and that, right? With things that we can kind of make tangible, we can see these in our own reality. We can see these things. When it comes to people that feel like, they're not like a physical gender or something like that, like if you look at someone like who's like may feel like, in a loving relationship that I want to be in, I want it to be, a masculine and a masculine, or a feminine and a feminine. I mean, what are these things to creation? What are these things, and this is not, I'm trying to like be respectful in the sense that I realize that this message is for humanity. So that's why I'm even asking the question. So I want that to be known. Like the whole point of me even bringing this up is because this is for humanity, right? This is not a attack on anybody or anything of the such. This is an embrace, right? So I'm asking the question that what do we think in the grand scheme of nature, right? With the energies, as we spoke about this whole time, how does things like homosexuality and transsexuality, how do these kinds of ideas and expressions in human reality fit into the natural rhythm of things, or the natural aspect of things? Is this just a part of nature? Like, what are we dealing with this? I would like some opinions on that, please.
So yeah, I want to jump in because so many thoughts came to my mind, but we talked about shadows before, sort of in an expression of reality, and I think it couldn't exist unless it was a part of the thought of creation, right? Because as once the creator thought, when that thought happened, everything that will be, that is, was. Um, and so I think it projects sort of what you talked about in terms of a shadow of our reality, right? And it is, because it is, like, it exists.
Yep. I could see that. So it's a play out of possibilities. Is this what is basically what you're saying? Like, this is something
Right,
that happens because it's a possibility and it's things that could
right,
happen. It plays out as that.
exactly, exactly.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Anybody else have anything they want to express on that?
I think for me, what I've noticed, like in Australia, is when, the minute a child is like 16 or 17 years old and they can start to choose, well, I think it's earlier than that here, they can start to choose their gender um, for themselves. And then we move to the next stage where basically they're allowed to go to a doctor and start to get hormone replacement therapy and
Yeah.
artificially
Yeah.
change their gender with hormones. And big pharmaceutical companies are behind
Yep.
creating providing the hormones. So I don't know. I look at that and I go, well, that's not natural at
Yeah,
all.
Yeah.
Um,
That was a
yeah,
perfect. Yeah. Yep.
yeah. It's definitely not nature. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but I know that it's definitely not nature. But at the same time, I do feel like men and women can experience the same energies within themselves, the feminine and masculine. I feel like those people have the ability to, because they say they're born male, but they feel like something else. I guess that's that other energy expressing itself and like the other one being suppressed. But I don't know if they should like go that far to, cut
Well,
something that's nature, right, in their nature to have, to just remove that because of how they feel. I think they should just express that in their own selves, whichever way they feel. But I don't feel like they should do that though. I feel
mm,
like that's kind of like a violation
so let me
to
ask y'all,
nature.
like, what is different than someone who's homosexual? And again, we're going, to a place where hopefully we all can be, mature and just build on the intellect. But what's the difference between someone who's homosexual and someone who feels as though they were born liking children? Right? What makes those two things different? They're both not natural, in my
Uh,
opinion, right?
shit.
What we would describe as natural, but they exist. And the reason why, back to the point, they exist because it's that, the
Okay.
initial point I made.
Sheesh.
I
I don't know. I gotta think about that.
I think that we're multidimensional as people, and we have more than just our body. We have a spirit too, and a soul. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that and I think
Yeah.
that yeah, and even though a lot of times people have disconnected from their spiritual, the soul, they're just all about, well, not the soul, you can't do that. But people are recognizing and staying in touch with their who they are spiritually. And I think that when a body comes in a form that's, male or female, like someone said, it can exist, but there can be so because it can exist, there can exist a male spirit in a female body. Uh, and it's
Well, I think so.
exactly, uh-huh.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you. Go ahead.
And I think that when that happens, there's a battle. It's I don't want to say too much. I just can say that I have I, mm, I just don't just I believe that for me is to um my life is looked at and pray for and hope for and send energy for goodness and peace toward my brothers and sisters on this earth. And so some people, they need some love sent their way, and some people need some balance and harmony, and some people need some peace and elimination of confusion. and you just, that's, we all need something, and some more than, some a little bit heavier. uh it's like a heavier kind of need for others, and but when I see my I see that as, I just know that I need to send peace, and when I see that I would like to say that there need maybe peace will help with that. And that's all I can say. I'm gonna stop talking.
Yeah, I have a question that I wanted to ask. Sorry for, but that came to me, which was like, so I think I would assume that we could all just agree that that's your lower self, though, right? Like anytime, so for example,
Yeah.
two, men can't procreate, so that's not, you know what I mean? Like, a pedophile clearly is causing so much harm. Like, so I think at the very least we all can agree that that's your very, your lowest self, I guess, an expression of your lower self.
Yeah, like it's
And
based in
yeah,
carnal desires,
yeah.
carnal pursuits, like material, like denser, like density, like
Mm-hmm.
it's because even in the name of it, it's called a sexuality, right? That's what it's called, right? People call these
Mm-hmm.
things a sexuality. So, it's all about
But is it
sex.
really?
Yeah, it's really
Yeah, yeah.
focused on that. It's like it's revolving around that concept, like it's based on that, like it's based in that. And so when it's about that, so that's like you said, that is dealt with. Where is it at on your body? Where are your reproductive organs at? It's where the lower part. And so that's just evident right there. Like the lower part is where you deal with that,
Mm.
and in that unification begins there. If you're on an upward trajectory, right? It can begin there. If you cycled around from the center, went up, and came back around in the torus to complete it, you pass by there. That's the beginning of your end. Like when you hit that root chakra and you're going up, that's the beginning of your end. That's the
Mm.
dragon.
Oh.
That's the kundalini. It's the beginning of your end, because your end is at the top of this pathway that you shoot up. And so like the crown chakra or whatever, right? So that's the perception of the end. Like it gives you the sight of the end. And so I agree. I agree. I think that is dealing with the lower self. Did anyone else want to express with that? Because the reason why is just to round that off is like I said, it's sexuality. So it's a carnal thing. It's based on actual sexual interaction in some way. So it's like, okay, well, it's basing this on this. It by its own definition, it defines itself as that. It's as a type of sexuality or this or that. So it's going into that. It's letting you know like this is on a root level, and so we're dealing with that now. Okay, let's expand a bit with this, because this is for humanity, not just for us or our opinion. I wanted to go like you to think a little bit outside the box. Like, okay, love exists, and we know that love is eternal. We know that like love can be given to anybody, any way. You can show love. Everybody can show love in some way. You can show love to somebody. Like, so love is universal. We can prove that. Like, everyone can show love. Animals can show love. Things can show love. Plants, by definition, by their own existence, show love. Everything, right? So everything's showing love, is cooperating, is providing the harmonic resonance, right? It's participating in its part of the harmonic resonance. So then, if everything if everything is on the same harmonic resonance, where do we go off? Like, it goes back to that again. But I'm not. It's like love. I think is a mental. That's the mental part. That's the mental part. It's like that expression in that case, because I'm like, okay, because if you're basing your love or your relationship on a sexuality like that, like you're saying like you're this or that, and it's not like an expression of nature.
Yeah, I think I'm right. Okay.
Yeah, it's lower
I'm
to.
feeling it. Yeah, cute.
Yeah, so if it's if it's not that expression of nature, then the question is, what is it? Like what are we calling what is this expression that's not the expression of nature, but is
Right.
somehow it's still an expression of
Can I,
love. Is it
yeah, I
just
want to ask you, like, so, because what
Mhm.
makes me say lower self, right? I'm so sorry to cut you off, but this just, I want to get your idea, like this thought. So, when I say lower self, is because what comes for me automatically is procreation.
Mhm.
And
mhm.
if, the goal of humans, like in order for us to exist, then you need to procreate, is my thought as to why I said lower self. That was just the basis of it only. Um, but then I think as challenge me to think deeper, it's like, but would that really stop all of humanity? Or it's not even possible for all of us, everyone in the world, to possibly be gay, and then humanity will not exist moving forward. And so maybe that thought is the lower self, like that fear or that, and not able to. So I don't know, but yeah, did that
Wow.
make sense?
Yeah, I see that.
I,
That's wild. That's interesting. You made me think
yeah.
with that one. You made me think with that one. Wow. Yeah. I can see that. I can see that. I can definitely see that thought being a fear-based construct of the lower self, you know, for sure.
A fear-based construct of the lower self.
Yeah, like you fearing, I guess they call it homophobia or whatever
Oh.
phobia. They put the phobia, fear is phobia. And so perhaps we're afraid of these things, or people are fearing it. Not to say that that means that that's the direction you're going with it. Me personally, I still believe like if we breaking it down to zeros and ones, I'm gonna say that's the toroidal, Mr. Miyagi wax on. That's wax on because your
Oh.
hands are going toward each other and you're going downward. The field is spinning you down toward in the middle. You're in a downward spin in the middle. And so that to me, that's that wax on. So you're on a downward trajectory, so to speak, when this kind of carnal indulgence, I'll call it. How about that?
Yes, I agree with that because of the thought that came out about the elimination. Maybe you didn't use the word elimination of humanity, but I see that we are transforming from mortal to immortal.
Mm.
And so
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
that's an expansion idea instead of a limitation.
Mm.
Wow. Mm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
So,
do you
So
mean
almost
mm.
like a,
do you mean
yeah.
because I think it can go either way because I think there's this dual reality happening. There's this parallel reality. So I want to be clear, like there's an artificial, like kind of like man-made, computerized, like transhumanist kind of now being called the metaverse, so to speak, for loose terms, but this kind of universal like virtual reality created like it's going to be the new internet kind of situation. And this will as some of people that get into tech like myself, as far as looking into these things, um, we see this as like the ultimate future for the direction that tech is headed right now. Like if it was to continue, if it was to be allowed to continue, and things just developed as they were. Not to say people have malicious intent, but things keep developing a certain way, then it turns into things. Not to say, oh, I just sat here and planned that like that, but it kind of just plans itself. That's how reality plays out. So it's already there. Like before we can consider, the actual physical rollout of it, it's already there. It's already there. So it's electric. It's like electricity, you know? And so you know,
And what you're saying, so
As
are you
opposed to
bringing
a
that?
spiritual, as opposed, I meant to say, I'm sorry, I didn't finish that. I just left that hanging. I'm sorry. As opposed to a spiritual aspect. So it could be that computerized, transhumanist world created by man, computerized, or an actual like spiritual within this realm kind of awakening on an actual physical level without technology, like actual physical awakening on a higher, to a higher level, etc.
Yes, that's the way that I view immortality. So, with the concepts that we shared tonight, like some things that Mira brought to the table, and then I can't remember who else. There were just bits and pieces touched on that showed. So when she was talking about the idea of touching your food before you eat it and it basically turning into a liquid so that it takes on less of a the processing that we have to do inside of our bodies, it's not as much, it's more of a fluid. And so this whole idea that makes our bodies work less brings on less stress to our bodies and even in our minds. When we can get out of stress, then we can become immortal, because our dead or our decaying or dying bodies are no longer, because they're not dying anymore, they're just living.
Just to be clear, do you think technology is an aid to our awakening, or like is technology a compensation for a lack of that um, prana or understanding of life force, so to speak, or whatever? Like I guess spiritual.
um, I think that technology is a great tool. I like the automation that exists is these things for humanity. I'm going to reference the Bible again, and when when Adam and Eve ate from the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they were then the men. I can't remember exactly how it says. They said, "Will work hard in the fields." Maybe somebody has the correct wording here, and the women would be given pain in childbirth. And so we're shown now so many things with automation. It makes it so much easier. We don't have to work as hard, and with our connection to nature again, it's making childbirth easier for women. There were some stories about the dolphin births, um and how easy it's become when we can connect to nature, but then yes, use technology in the space where it can be used for automation to do our work for us, basically. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. So what do you think? So do you think that yeah, it did, but I do have a follow up now because it kind of opened up a follow up for me. I was wondering, do you think like technology, like where does that end? Like where does that relationship with technology doing the work for you end? Like do you start replacing your organs with technology that can do it better, or do you at what point does it reach a boundary with technology?
As far as inside of our bodies, I see that our bodies are our nature. We are a part of nature, just like animals are nature, and that's what we are too. We are a type of animal. And so would you put something artificial inside of an animal or a plant? Will it survive? Will it thrive? And so putting something artificial inside of humans should be the same answer, since we really are a part of nature. So keeping the things that are technology anyway, keeping that in its place outside of the human body is what I see, that continues the cycle of humanity.
Yeah. Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, the original question was what you said is it aiding in our awakening, right?
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I think yeah and no, man. I don't know. Mm, like if we didn't have technology, would we still be in the same position as we are today? I don't know. I don't think so. Um, I just think technology is like it's kind of like stagnating us in a sense. You know, it's keeping us away because we have so much to cipher through that we have to cipher through just to even get some kind of truth. You get what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
so I think because it's so much that we, you know, as soon as we turn on our phones, we see a whole bunch of stuff that can lead us down different roads and different paths. But at the same time, I think some people are going to get it and some people aren't. Because, you know, I know for a fact, um, certain cultures still have their, you know, spiritual practices and things like that. But also, you know, certain people don't. You know, I just, I don't know. I think it's a yeah and a no.
Yeah, you know what? I think that it's again this idea of balance, harmony, right? Like, there's ways in which technology can enhance and support humans, but so the same themes we talked about earlier. This sort of the shadow, the powers that be, right? And in some ways, they not governance isn't the right word, but they have a large impact on the world. The same way the good forces do. Like when you see something beautiful, right, in nature, and it changes your. Thank you so much. And it changes your day, or you know what I mean, like. And so I think the more that we use technology in ways that I don't know. I'm losing my thoughts. I was getting out of Uber, so I'm gonna stop. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, really.
I
I don't
think
really know.
that oh,
Oh, go ahead.
I think that technology is good. I think it's as a tool to help make life allow us to have easier and life and not have to work so hard to a certain extent. I don't know though. But it just seems as good as a tool, but not integrated in us as, I don't
Yeah,
that part.
yeah. I
Not
think
as part of us, but as some outside of us that we can use to make, life and even if it prolongs life from the outside though, by causing us to be able to have to, not use so much of our energy and life force went outwards, then it's fine. But it doesn't need to be integrated with us. That's the I think technology is, and that's going too far when you integrate it into us as humans.
I, I just think it depends on how you use it. But you said if it is it investing us, taking us a little longer to get to it, but you know, do everything. I don't know. I just think it could, but it couldn't, depending on how we use it.
Hmm. I tend to agree with the non-invasive approach. I definitely wouldn't want to stick anything in my body. Period. Nope. So
Yeah.
and I don't recommend anybody because I see people as I see myself. At
Oh
least I try
no.
to. So my advice for you is my advice for me. Yeah, don't do it. That's just my advice for myself. So,
Nah,
I
I wasn't agreeing with that part. Nah, not that part at
no,
all.
right.
I thought we was talking about like the technology as far as like social media and everything else, like cell phones and electromagnetic, magnetic frequencies and all of that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you was talking about that, but definitely
That
not
is
putting
right.
that in your body because we
Facts.
already have the super intelligence and the natural intelligence in our body to even navigate. Why would you want to put something in I don't know, it's probably potentially a disruptor. You know what I mean?
Right,
I
exactly.
wouldn't do
They
that.
have spoken about the technology that you can have inserted into your wrist, so you no longer have to pay via like tapping your phone. You can actually just have that chip put into your wrist, and you can just tap your wrist on like payment system, like just like a paywave. Um, so I've
Yeah.
heard about that, and I know in England, in one school in England allowed face recognition technology to be used on the children, so they could pay for their school lunches via face recognition. So their three-dimensional models of their faces were done in face recognition, and so when they went to the school canteen, the parents' credit card was charged according to what the kids bought that day at school canteen.
Mm.
Mm-mm. I would think that's the same as putting 5G in your body. I don't, I would say if it's not made out of the substance that a body is made out of, that is best. I would think it's best not to integrate it with your body. That was just my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, but I think there's going to be a lot of people that are willing. This school in England has already started using that technology, and parents have
Mm.
agreed to it.
Yeah.
I,
Technology
you
happens.
know, it's happening. It's happening now. So
Yeah.
it's what's strange is where does when there becomes a tipping point when enough people have already done it, or our face scans are already happening on our mobile phones, or our fingerprints are already captured on our screens when we do a login or something
Mhm.
like that. Like, when do we actually as humans
I mean,
go, okay,
pacemakers. That's a technology, a pacemaker. You know, people
mm,
have pacemakers. Artificial hearts and things of this nature, in all kinds of
Yeah,
situations. So, yeah,
yeah,
technology is directly connected to people's lives, like right now, in our world, and has been for quite some time. Like, if you want to say advanced technology, but it's ways that it continues to advance, and yeah, man, I'm definitely
Once
not.
upon a I just see it, it's just, I think it, especially because, if those chips that are going under your skin are connected to somewhere else where I know this might sound like science fiction, but hey, it could happen. If there's a technology in that and it can be controlled at any point, where does it stop? Something that has a ability to control that technology, where does that, where do how do you know that somehow something could not go awry at another end on purpose or by accident, and then now something becomes of your kid or whoever has that technology inserted into their body? I don't know. And I know there's pacemakers and all of that, but I just have such a my whole thought about anything that going into your body that didn't, you didn't come with. I just don't know. I just guess I'm kind of old
Mm.
fashioned about things like that, so to speak. Um, and I wonder even about people with pacemakers. How do you feel? How does that person really feel who has that pacemaker? What is really their quality of how they feel?
Yeah, it's pretty scary. So it looks, from an outside looking in type of perspective. I had a cousin. He had a pacemaker. He died at a pretty young age. Rest in peace. Yeah, just scary because man, I mean, you could tell it was some artificiality, so to speak, going on. And I was like, oh
Mm-hmm.
man, and he was still my cousin though. Like he still functioned, like he was still doing his thing. He still had like normal behavior. Um, he had pretty fairly normal behavior. Other than some other
But
issues that he had. So
yeah, like I know that they can help prolong a life and all that. But is that person is that well, or is that a person who feels a little kind of sick every day? You
mhm,
know?
mhm. Yeah, I agree. I'm someone that embraces death. I believe that, this is a part of the process. So, you should be ready for that. Unfortunately, if it happens when you're not ready, then don't worry, it doesn't end, but things happen. But when it comes to like just death and avoiding death, I think that's kind of the people, people that have these vast like control issues that they can't reel in. And it's like they want to dominate all of society, and have everyone, moving on the same beat. It's a mirror image, guys. Like, I want you to understand, like, this is heading in the opposite direction of the same thing. It's still a part of that same ultimate thing, though. So that it's oneness through an individual in the material way. It's a one man dictatorship kind of situation is the goal of the new world order type situation. So, um, technocracy, one man dictator technocracy, that kind of situation. And so, we're doing the opposite of that, right? It's not. It's like the same principles involved of the unification and reset to zero, right? It's that same principle, but it's through the regular technology of what it is right now, just the human form and the energy bodies and the subtle energy bodies and the different dimensional expressions of this yourself as a being, you know. And so you have your multidimensional expression, your energy bodies, etc. All these different aspects that come together create you in this reality, which is like a shadow of another you in a other reality, I should say. And it's really, it's and like people feel like it's been kept from them. That's another thing I wanted to address real quick. We're gonna wrap it up here pretty soon. Just real quick, it's not personal. A lot of people feel like, oh yeah, these people are keeping this knowledge from us, and like, humanity has been kept at this place, right? But you got to realize, humans, we do this thing every day, all day, every day, all day. So technically, you always have that ability. If I'm just saying not to say that you truly have the ability, as to say like, oh, you're gonna defy complete reality and this and that. But I'm saying like, technically, right? It looks like the perception is that you always have the ability to be a good human being and to live in a harmonious way with nature and society and this and that. Like technically, right? It's technically you do. So a lot of times you just have to strip away a lot of things that you're not ready to strip away. And then
Yeah.
that right there is a big hurdle for many, many people. Huge hurdle.
Yeah.
And so, but technically it's available. So, what we're doing is it's kind of that, but it's not, it's like the opposite of going into a one man, it's everybody, right? It's everybody. But see, because of that, it's back at zero. So things are what? Free. That's what zero is. Free. Free energy. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're dealing with. So I just want people to understand what this means. Like, we're dealing with a level of consciousness where, we're back to zero of understanding that things are free by nature. It's not about oh, this costs this and we need to do this. Some people are afraid already. They're like, oh, no, communism. No, 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 no. This is not communism. This is, reality. This is what it's supposed to. It's not even what it's supposed to be. It's like what it becomes after a certain expression. How about that? That would be more accurate. It's what it becomes. It's inevitable. This is just a time thing, right? So it's just an expression that's becoming what it's going to become, which is now, back to zero. Oneness, which is back to zero. When you become one, right? We're becoming one. So it's the process of becoming one on two ends. And so again, it's related to the direction that you're spinning. That's the two earths. People talk about the dual earth, and it's like, oh yeah, the dual earth. No, the dual earth is the dual torus field. Because on one direction of the torus field, you're going down, and one you're going up. Just to put it simply, it's obviously spinning in a different dimension horizontally, spinning as well. So it's got that vertical and horizontal spin simultaneous from the inside out, and it continues. So we have that going on, and so that's what these guys are selling their end, so to speak, right? But guess what? You get to participate in the end that you want to participate in. That's how it goes. So people can sell you tickets to whatever. I'm sorry?
I just say on that note, I've got to spin to the Enchanted Forest party and sing to a bunch of people. So
okay. Thank you so much for coming through. Thank you for your presence here.
And you guys are beautiful. Hey, you guys, each and every one of you are doing it. We're infecting that quantum field with some real goodness. So yay! I'll be dancing it out and singing it. So
yes.
Have a beautiful day, night, evening, wherever you are. Bye bye.
Peace.
Have a good night. Peace.
Bye. Good night.
Take care.
Bye.
Enjoy. Have a good gig.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful. But yeah, we're closing it out. There is one last thing. And then we can go ahead and just close it out. That would be appropriate. So the last thing I just wanted to mention was the process, right? So we talked about like the process of electromagnetism and how even we got into the technology aspect of it, which I'll admit I wasn't expecting to go there, but we went there. That wasn't planned. No, it's not really planned, but when we look at the process of the joining, right? Excuse me. Scratchy throat. Sorry, I'm having a drink of water real quick. The process of joining, bringing together, excuse me, electromagnetism. When we look at that, what comes of it in our physical reality is a child is born, right? It could be. And we're not saying every time, but just in a normal circumstance, overall, just in general, right? We're all here as a product of that, right? Like every one of us is a product of that's here, that's able to hear it. So then what does the child represent? Like when the two forces are coming together, right? The masculine and feminine come together, and then the child is produced, right? We're just talking like from a human standpoint. What does that represent? Like what is that? Like what's the child? What is the lesson of the child? Like, because they called Christ the child. Ein Sofer in Jewish mysticism. The Ein Sofer is we talked about this on another stream. Ein is nothingness or none or nothing. Ein Sof is no end or infinity. And the Ein Sofer is infinite light. So it's a 3-part process that's built upon itself. And they call it the triple darkness, but the last darkness is light. But it's still a form of the same darkness, right? It's the triple darkness. But so what happens is it's the same thing we've been talking about with the zeros and ones. The same thing. It's zero, nothingness, then one, everything. And then out of that, the child comes. What is that third thing? That's what I wanted to see, if anyone had any ideas on that. Like, that third thing. What's the third thing? What is that? What is the child? Like when a man and a woman come together and create a child, what is the child? What does that represent? On a universal level, like on a cosmic level, what does that represent?
Life continuing.
Continuance?
Yeah.
Okay. Continuance going forward. Okay. So, interesting. Interesting. So it's okay, electromagnetism. So the product allows for the continuance or the going forward of a summation or a version of that same thing, a version of that energy. So it's the same version, right? It's like, okay, so it's a product of the same energies that made that thing. It's allowing that energy to continue in a different form, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, okay, But see, it seems like, because it seems, you know what it seems like? It seems like something's to do with, like, because we're all in this together in some way. Because, okay, if these people have a kid and then the next people have a kid and then that and that, those kids meet and then they, get together and they have kids. So it's like people are having kids, like people get together and then, it's just, so you're saying continuing. So the human race is being continued through men and women getting together and having children. Human race is being continued. Okay, right? Okay, I'm on board with that. So then, the child, the creation, the light, right? Is it, because I mean, if one half of a force got with another half of a force and then they made the child, so is it continuing to be another half of the force? See, that one's deep. So okay, it's cool. I think basically
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, the universe is expressing itself like through us. That's what the energies, I don't know. I don't know, just it's conscious and it's expressing itself through us in different variations of what, like different realms of thought. Everybody's somehow different, but we're all together. How we're explaining things, how we speak, how we carry out, what it is we're supposed to be doing here.
And we continue it through the child. So we have children. We have children to continue what we're doing, like that mission, right? As humanity, is that what you're saying?
or just that could potentially express stuff.
So
Or
it's
the
it's a
different
more of an
energies,
expression of itself.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
even oftentimes, if people look at your children, if you look at your children, you might see them even living out a part of you that
You
you didn't. They're that maybe, like, I literally have looked at my daughter and said, she's that girl that I wanted to be, like the one that I admired. That other person that I admired. I mean, because I think we all look upon certain people and we may admire that person. And I remember there were people that I admired that were other girls, you know, my age and women my age too. And I see now at this point, my daughter is that part of me. That's that part of me that, you
Mm.
know, but I looked at it because I was living another part of me all this other time. That's that part of me that I focused on and lived in. But there was another part that I wanted to be that I admired.
Mm.
And when I saw it in other people, and I see it in my own child now.
Mm. Wow.
So,
So, ooh, okay. Wow. Ding, ding. Okay. I think you rung a bell with that one. So you're saying basically you some like children or the child is like an influence, like it's something to do with your experience in this world, and also like push like almost like a I don't want to say reincarnation because it's not like you're consciously
Like
them,
a conduit.
or a
like
carnation of a
a,
part of you.
a
Like we're
carnation
so
of a part
full.
of you, like
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
they
like an
are the
influence, like hmm.
like something that you know is if you I don't know if everybody feels this way, but I there's just things that you know you looked and you were like, oh, I'd love to be like that. You know, you admired it. You may have like felt like I would be that. I would be that type of person. I like that type of person. I think that's a cool type of person. But I'm this kind of person, you know, and it's cool too, you know, because I'm this kind of person and I'm living this because I think it's cool to be this way. This is a good feeling, you know. But that child that you have will often, I think you can look at that child and see that child being part, some of that person that you admired, that was a part of you that you didn't necessarily dwell in or live in because maybe you didn't know how, or maybe you were afraid to do it. But then you have a child, and that child ends up being that. It's interesting. If you look at it, I don't know, maybe we raise our kids to be that way. I don't know, but I do think that that child that comes out of us, that, you know, we bring forth that life
Mm-hmm.
is a part of our life force, and that life will live that life force.
Okay,
Which is, I don't
that's
know.
beautiful. I mean, wow, epic. Man, I'm definitely thankful for everybody that came through to participate on the panel. It was extraordinary, mind blowing. I'm definitely gonna be going back, listening, you know, getting those jewels again and again. So just the final thing then, before I go ahead and just completely close it out here, just to build on what you just said, Yori. Um, so say you have like, and I know everybody's not Christian or this or that, but I'm just going to bring this up for the sake of, you know, we all are should be familiar with this by now. You know, we live in America, right? In the U.S. for the most part, at this point. And so, you know, you have the so-called father, and then you have the son, which is Christ, right? From the mother, Mary, right? Who was said to be a virgin, and there was an immaculate conception. So there was a father, but the father was extra dimensional. Let's say that, right? Extra dimensional father, physical, you know, Mary, a woman, had a child, right? On some like parthenogenesis type tip, right? I think I just gave it away, but I was gonna say, you know, what do we think, you know, Jesus, like when you see Mary, like, okay, there's this thing called the Madonnas, right? The Madonna, it's a depiction of Mary and Jesus, right? Jesus as a child, and these are like worldwide. These are all over the world. You know, they're very sacred artifacts and things like that, and they're all over the place, right? And they got in Europe, they got the ones called the Black Madonnas, and they're all like black, like dark, you know, and they're all over Europe. And
That's the ones that the Pope pray to, right?
Yeah, that's one of them. You know what I mean? They're like those kind of depictions and stuff like that. You can see documentaries on that. You can type that in YouTube. It's some great documentaries that show you the level that these things are taken. And so you have to see that. And so when you look at that, what do you think? The last and final question, then I'll go ahead and close it out. And I appreciate you guys so much for coming and being patient and everything. What do you think the Christ represents in the Mary with the Mary and the Christ in those pictures of Madonna and Child, all of that we see in all these depictions with a woman and a child, even in Egypt, and that you could call that what you want to call it, but it's those depictions of the woman and the child the same way. So it's like, what do you think that represents?
Woman and a child.
Yeah, like what do you do you interpret a message? Do you think that these things have a message?
Yeah, I think they do. I'm just trying to figure out what it would be. Um, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like what Yori was saying about it was very deep about like the child being kind of like a rebirth of yourself in a way with adjusting
Oh yeah, rebirth.
like
Oh yeah,
you're
rebirth.
like a rebirth.
Kind of like reincarnation.
Like reincarnation.
Yeah,
Because when I think of
like a
reincarnation,
rebirth.
yeah, like a rebirth, right? Because when I think of reincarnation and rebirth, you know what I think of? I think of like the solar plexus. It's like a sun. Like it makes me think it's like, okay, why is that like the sun? Like if you think of like people that believed in like these things, these spiritual concepts that seem to add up when you explore them more, you're like, why would they say like the sun
Oh,
is
the
that way?
sun. Oh, the
No,
sun. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So
Talking about the sun.
So when I think of reincarnation, no, it's right. So what I'm saying is exactly, yes, it's right on point that you mentioned reincarnation because that's related to the sun, which is the son or the
Still
child
there?
or the Christ. Yeah, I'm still here. The Christ or the son or the child, right? It's that rebirth, right? I said that's appropriate. That you were mentioned reincarnation in relation to the sun. After all, it is related to your life under the sun, being powered by the sun, or partially powered by the sun, so to speak. And so that's what you have. So I still, me personally, the child, you know, it's simple. What the child is like you both already said, and like everybody kind of has reiterated throughout this conversation, which is a great way to end it out, is the child is just it's just creation. It's light. It's the same thing that you are, just like everybody's the same thing that everybody is. We're all the same thing. It's just light. And it's a fun game where we can have the material expression of the lower field. You know what I'm saying? We exist on that lower field. Like right here, like if you look at this, you see like a torus field, but the torus part is invisible, right? So you got the torus field, it's a donut, and this mountain is in the middle of the donut. And each one is a torus field, and on the bottom of each torus field, like I said yesterday, we have material reality. Material at the bottom of each torus field. So when you go up to heaven, what we might call heaven, it's another torus field. The bottom of that torus field is material world, of that dimension. So what that means is that, the physical aspect, or what you perceive as the physical in the dimension, the respective dimension or reality that you're in at the time, that physical aspect is, the lower part of your consciousness at that time. So it's always the lower. Even on the higher realms, it's still the lower aspect of yourself. So anyway, so relating that to creation and the child, this reality itself is the child. Like the actual creation of the reality, its light-based existence is the product of the forces that are beyond creation, right? That are extra dimensional to existence and creation. So those forces are gone. So when we talk about electricity and magnetism, boom, I mean, you would struggle to point to a magnetic force or electric force, like the actual visual image of it around you right now. But guess what? It's all around you right now. Electricity running all through your wires, all through your phone, and, you know, powering your phone powered. It got a battery and all that. Electricity running all through your phone, all through your wires, you know, whatever case may be. So it's right there. Magnetism, it's right there. The very existence is magnetism. So then the product of the child is, guess what? You're the child. You're the product. You're the child. The existence itself is the child. The light and the existence, that's the child. You know, it's that reality itself. So that's a great place to leave it. That's a great place to wrap it up. I'll just let you guys, you know, if anybody has anything they want to add or anything like that, go ahead, man. Go ahead and add what you need to add. I want to hear it.
That's really deep. And I'm going to think about that. Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Wisdom, I saw you on mute, man. Did you want to chime in real quick?
Jay?
Yep.
I only caught the last part because my phone died and I had to log back in. But you said that. So the thing that you were saying earlier, you were saying that that it's the child. That's what you were talking about when you talk about the sun.
Yeah, so the sun is a representation of the child, right, which is the soul. So the soul,
Okay.
the soul is the light, and the soul is the reason you exist in the realm that you're in, is where your soul is at, right? So when you see that expression of the sun in the sky and the moon is a part of it too. Is also a reflection of you, as the ladies today were demonstrating. You know what I'm saying? They were explaining and demonstrating how the moon is also a part of the reality as well. In fact, influencing the humans. So we see that the sun is also the same way. And it's representing our waking consciousness, because what happens under the sun? We work. We do our thing, you know, like, you know, if you want to quote the Bible, it says that man works and stuff under the sun, you know, and this kind of thing. So, you know, it's just a reality.
That's the
business hours.
That's why your melatonin is what secreted at nighttime,
That's
and
right.
what serotonin in the morning time, and that's what wakes you up. Like when the sun comes up, you come up, and when it goes down, that's when you go down.
That's right. Exactly. And we talked about that, and that was mentioned earlier, and that's a beautiful chime in right there, bro. I appreciate you for coming through. And yeah, but just to wrap it up, not to leave you hanging, just to make sure you're clear, the reality itself, like the light that creates the actual physical realm, each realm, even heavenly realms, are light based, right? This is what we got to understand. So all the realms are light based. That's what we're saying. And because of that, that's the child. That's the product of the forces that created those realms, the greater forces.
Didn't it come out of darkness though?
Aha. And what is darkness? Like, 1 or 0?
Even when you're in your mother's womb and it's completely dark.
Exactly.
9 months of darkness.
There you go. Exactly. Ooh, and the number 9 and the months, and you know, that's spectacular.
Number 9, that's completion.
Completion. Baked it in the oven. It's complete now. Pull it out.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm ready to come to the light now.
There you go.
Except you know, I gotta be born under these terrible hospital conditions is unhospitable. You know,
Right.
you got the fluorescent lights in my face. I'm supposed to be in the natural sunlight.
Okay, I'm glad you know what? Thank you for saying that, bro. I'm so glad you said that before we closed out. Man, that's a great chime in right there, man. Thank you. So glad you said that. So, okay, so remember, you know, when you come into this realm like this is related to your soul. So you got to understand, like, your existence and your expression is a part of this realm, and your soul is a part of the soul of this realm, so to speak. You know, of course, it's a part of the greater soul, and the greatest soul, which is the most high, so to speak, you know, or however you choose to name that, or and things like that. So the soul, you know, is demonstrating where you're at right now, you know. So we can't be, again, we talked about empathy for the lower self, and the lower self, as you can see, is always at the bottom of the realm. The realm is everything. It's not just this. The realm is this whole area up to the next realm, right? And at the bottom of the realm, you're going to have the land. It's just like your body shows you this, guys. This is not fake. This is, your body literally shows you this exact thing. Your feet walk on earth. It's made that way. It's supposed to be like that. Like you walk, you have feet to stand on the earth beneath you. That's what it's supposed to be. The earth is at the bottom. It's beneath you. So that's letting you know the material aspect is the lower and the greater existence, right? The material part of you is the lower part of you. Is the bottom part of you. Is the physical part, you know, and that part is light. That's light. And that creation of light is you and us and everything, right? That has a physical existence in every realm. And it's a different type of light. And that's it. And we, you know, are the child that's born from the forces of the cosmos, so to speak, the most high, right? The zero, the ultimate zero and the ultimate one. So that's what we're trying to do right now, is we're getting this to a one. Because once we hit the one on the positive side, it's a positive zero. We reset to a positive zero. Big positive torus field moving in a upward motion, circular motion, coming back around, but inevitably at least moving into that next upward motion. Again, it's not wrong to have a downward torus field. It's not wrong. But see, the difference between us and them is they keep secrets. Everything I'm saying right now, they charging fees for that. Everything I'm saying right now, they're keeping secrets with their people. Their people got to earn degrees. And my man's the other day, he was on the stream. He told me he had to take a vaccine to get one of his degrees in his order. And I'm not putting him on blast or nothing like that. I'm just saying that's the truth, though. He did say that. He said it on the stream. So, I mean, I'm not putting him on blast. It's on the stream. So, like, he had to take the vaccine to get his, I think he said, second degree, if I'm not mistaken, in the order that he's in. And he said, and he acknowledged that he understood the consequences of that. And or what could be, you know, he was like, you know, I did it for a selfish reason because I just wanted to do that, which is, you know, that's respectable. Because, again, we was talking about empathy for the lower self. And so when we have those carnal urges and those desires where you say, man, you know, I'm on a strict diet and I'm getting in great shape, but you know what? I need to have a cheat day. There you go. Empathy for the lower self. You have desires. You want to go and have that day where you can go and eat something different. And you want to eat whatever, a snack or whatever, right? That's available. You eat the snack, you know, if that's what you want to do. Not to say you have to. Just to say, if that's what you want to do, you have empathy for your lower self. Like when you make these choices, they have consequences. But if you're down for the consequence, then you must have empathy for yourself. And empathy is really an expression of forgiveness. You know, when we're having forgiveness, that's the energy. Like that's the frequency going on with empathy. You know, similar frequency right there. And that's liberation. That's liberation. So that's what we're trying to do. We just make one, you know, get to the same idea of oneness in this realm. What happens is we reset to zero, because every time you get to one, you become zero. When you get to zero and you realize you're zero, now you're one. So it's like we got to reset to zero, and that's going to happen inevitably. That's what I want you to understand. Like this is happening inevitably, guys. Like this is what is happening, period. Doesn't matter if who believes it or not, it's happening. Okay, it's a cause and effect type of reality that this is already in motion. So reset to zero is going to happen. It's just about which direction is the torus field spinning. And I can't break it down any simpler than that. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. So, and that's an electromagnetic torus field. So it's two energies swirling and dancing together, making that spinning motion, you know, and this is leading to the actual creation. Look at the sun and the moon. What you think that is? That's a rotating force moving. It's an invisible force that we perceive is rotating those objects. Come on, guys. Like this is stuff that's available to us. It's only our own fault if, you know, we choose not to just look, you know, and just pay attention. That's on us. So the reality is here. The nature shows you. Nobody's hiding anything. The mystery is, guess what? On a positive level, when you talk about a mystery, you don't have a secret. You know what a secret is? A secret is on the lower aspect, the carnal. Now we're getting into secrets. We're keeping things. We must hide it. We must keep it. It's scarcity. You know, all that is what we call an illusion. Why? Because we're rising up. So we rise up past that limitation, that limited thinking. We don't keep secrets. Guess what? The mystery is available. And what is the mystery before you realize it is what? It's just a surprise. That's all. It's just a surprise. It's just a lovely surprise that it wasn't a secret from you. It was right there. You just didn't quite see it. But it's okay. Now you see it. And guess what? Ta-da! It's a surprise. Surprise. It's amazing. It's you. It's yours. And that's how it's working. So reset to zero. And I encourage us to do that on our own personal levels. And yeah, that's what the child is, brother. The actual reality itself on every level. The light-based reality, I should say, right? Created by the forces. And that's how we get electromagnetism, creating our computer technology and stuff. With the zeros and ones and the actual electromagnetism with the magnets and the electricity that we use in our products. We use batteries, you know, in these things. So we got all these things going. So right there, I'm going to end it. I'm going to go ahead and close out. I appreciate everybody for coming through, providing their divine wisdom. Man, I'm so thankful for this. This is a real gem. You guys have just blessed me so much. This was literally just dumping riches out here. It's just like, here you go, gems, jewels, here you go, free, there you go. It's all free. And that's the way that it should be. And I sincerely want to thank everybody that participated in tonight's call and tonight's discussion. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Peace and love to the family. Peace and love to everybody that joined. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.